favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. What I'd like to do is just first have everybody stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to tonight's meeting. Basically, the purpose for tonight's meeting is a special meeting to talk with legal counsel about the process of moving forward for potential for a referendum for one government. And what I'd like to do is step back first before we get into sort of the nitty-gritty of tonight, which is going to be complicated at the least. But first, I just really want to say that when the town board and village board held their joint meeting to interview legal service and a consultant service for the purposes of one community moving forward, almost every other town and village do that in executive session. And we were the one government basically that did it in the public and felt that we had nothing to hide. We wanted the public to sort of see who we were talking to, who we were interviewing, and when we made our choice, hopefully support the choice that we made. Simultaneously, tonight's meeting, because we're meeting with legal counsel, again, could and was expected by counsel, because that's the way it's usually done, for it to be an executive session. But the feeling of myself, Sally, and probably the rest of the board members, which I know I could speak very freely for, that we believe we have nothing to hide, that everything we do is out in the public, and we want everybody to understand what we're grappling with and grapple with us together. And as we delineate on what we're trying to do, they'll understand our conversations, our discussions, and understand why we're moving the way we're moving. And so this is being done publicly, out in the open, but it's actually unusual for it to be done. And I think that's much to the credit of both boards in terms of their willingness and openness and stuff. And so I think that's really important. When we hired CGR and Linda Kingsley as our attorney.
Before you proceed,
Sure.
I think the village board needs to authorize you, since we agreed
Okay.
that you will be the presiding
Right.
officer and the agenda formulator. The village board never authorized the supervisor to sign the contract with CRG, Linda, and the financials and the application. I'd like a motion to do that.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. Okay, so, so as just a little update for tonight, when we interviewed the council, if everybody will remember correctly, Linda Kingsley in the interview process said to the two boards that she believed there was possibly a need for the two boards to get home rule legislation in order to move forward on coterminous government based on the state law. And my mouth fell, Kitty's mouth fell, and
My mouth fell.
okay, and her mouth fell, and despite that, we chose to hire Linda anyway. And so Linda had said that she thought that there were some concerns, and that what she wanted to do if we hired her was to first go do her due diligence before she came back and addressed the two boards on whether her concerns were, you know, real or not real or whatever. So Linda did do her due diligence. She met with the Department of State and basically reviewed everything she believed about all the different laws. Then she had a follow-up meeting with the governor's office to also understand what the issues might be and to come up with a plan to move forward. And after those two meetings, Linda put together a document that she's going to take us through tonight, slowly. Jeff, you have one? Kitty, did I give you one?
No.
Okay. If pass these down, and Bill, you can get one too. Okay, you got one. Okay, so Linda's going to take us through this. What I need to just sort of say before Linda goes through this, and Joe, you have one too, right? Before Linda takes us through this, I think there's just a couple of things that I want to just address first. First, what I've been learning as I've been working on this, and being at meetings with the Department of State and, you know, speaking with people up in state government and the governor's office, consolidation in terms of coterminous, in terms of 17A, which Linda will explain, which is the governor's way of trying to make things easy, is more complicated than anybody thinks, and it's not as easy as anybody thinks. And of course, New Paltz doesn't choose to just take the easy route. We're trying to do something very complicated that we think meets the needs of our community, but it's not that simple and straightforward. So she's going to take us through the process, but I think what's really important to know is that the governor's office is completely dedicated to trying to do whatever it takes to work with the town and village of New Paltz to try to find a way to make it so it can work for us to accomplish the kind of government we want. And they're totally committed, and they've given their complete support and the support of their office to be behind the community to try to move forward. So I think that's just sort of the background that needs to be known. And then what I'll do is I'll turn it over to Linda, and because it's so many different laws, whether it's village law, state law, new state law, different law, it gets very, very complicated for those of us who are not lawyers, but I think Linda will take us through in a very concise way. Joe, our town attorney, is here tonight to sort of hear what is being said, to also help us through the process as we move forward. The village attorney was also invited, but unfortunately, I don't think he was able to make it. So with that, I will turn it over to Linda for her to start to take us through the process.
Thank you, Susan. And at any point, if any of you have questions, please let me know, because there's going to be a bunch of different areas to go through.
Yeah, try to see if we can.
Okay, the first thing is familiarizing yourself with some of these laws. So I'm going to kind of run through them, and then we'll be talking about what the dilemma is and what your options are. As Susan said, when you folks hired me or requested proposals, what you were requesting was a proposal for an attorney to help you through a 17A consolidation. 17A is the relatively new article of the General Municipal Law, which Governor Cuomo pushed through as he was Attorney General, and is still one of his really favored projects, to assist municipalities in consolidating. The difficulty became, when you look at that law, it really allows two options. It allows for the dissolution of all but one of the communities involved in the process, or it involves the consolidation of communities, but still only one standing at the end. There is nothing in 17A that authorizes the end result to be a coterminous community, which is what had me raise the concern I raised when I came in with the proposal. So the initial point is 17A as it stands now, without any legislative changes, will not allow the creation of a coterminous town village of New Paltz. Another law you need to be familiar with in this whole process is Article 17 of the village law. The problem is, one of the confusions in all of this, I mean, it's just ironic that it worked that way, but you have 17 of the village law, 17 of the general municipal law, and 17A of the general municipal law, all of which play into this. And it only makes it more confusing because you might hear someone from government talking about 17, and you might think they're talking about one and they're really talking about the other. 17 of the village law details how a coterminous village, town village will run after it becomes coterminous. For some reason, the way it's drafted now, and it may be because there are just so few coterminous communities, it only applies to how it will function when it's a new village, or a new village in a new town. Not when you've got an existing village and an existing town choosing to become coterminous. So this lovely law, which very nicely lays out how a coterminous community will operate, also, as it stands right now, does not give guidance if New Paltz were to consolidate. So you can't use that provision to help you figure out how you're going to run. Now, when you thought you were going to run under a General Municipal Law 17A, you thought you'd be running based on what you negotiated in the consolidation agreement. But again, that doesn't apply. And village law as it stands right now, which sets out the process, also does not clearly apply. There's also 3 articles in the town law which deal with dissolution of towns, consolidation of towns, but again, do not at all address a coterminous status, so they don't apply in this situation. I want to go through the legislation that's passed already, the legislation that's out there now, to give you a little more background on where this all stands. If you recall, last year, a bill was passed by the legislature. It's Chapter 435 of the laws of 2012. And that provision dealt with the Citizen Empowerment Tax Credit. And it specified that a town and village that become coterminous would be eligible for the tax credit, because previously coterminous community was not eligible. So that sounds good, right? Okay, one problem. It says right in there that in order to be eligible for the tax credit, upon becoming coterminous, they must run as a town. And your intent all along, see, I'm getting these, this is deja vu from the last meeting. And all along, you've been talking about wanting to run as a village. So that law, it says a town shall be deemed to be the surviving municipality. So the law that was adopted last year gave you the access to the tax credit if you became coterminous, but only if you run as a town. Now, I think somewhere along the way people figured out that was a problem. A bill was introduced by your legislators this year, which is Assembly 2051, Senate 2787. It's passed the Assembly and it's currently sitting in the Senate Finance Committee. That did a couple of things. One is it amended that state finance law provision to say that if a coterminous community gets a tax credit, they can choose to run as a town or a village. So if that bill passes the legislature, that resolves that problem for you. And at this point, I have no indication that it's not going to pass. However,
It's already passed the Assembly.
it's already passed the
And
Assembly, it's in
about
Senate Finance.
And it's about to come out.
Yes. So it solves that problem. However, and I hate to keep giving you these howevers, but remember how I said the village law provision only talks about new towns or villages, new coterminous towns, villages, and how they would run. It doesn't address existing that merge together. This clears up that problem and says that these village law provisions shall also apply to existing town villages that merge together, except it says you've got to merge by annexation. And we'll talk a little bit more about annexation later, but again, it was not my understanding that annexation was the way you wanted to go, and we'll talk about why that might be an issue. So the bill that's out there now has some good parts to it and has some concerns to it.
Can I just go
Sure.
back to 435?
Sure.
The language specifies that a town shall be deemed the surviving municipality.
Correct.
So my understanding from Consolidation 101 was that you can never dissolve a town.
Right.
Right? A town always has to be
Right.
encompassing. So maybe I'm just getting too minute on this, but the town would survive.
It is interpreted by everyone at the legislature and Department of State to mean you have to function as a town, which is why the amended, the bill that's out there this year says you can vote on whether you want to run as a town or a village.
So really what they're saying is, we don't like coterminous. We really want you to operate as...
I don't think they're saying that. I think there have been a number of inadvertent pieces of legislation that people didn't realize the impact of some of portions within them.
I think yes, and I think to take it the next step, it's yes and no. When they started working on consolidation, when the governor did his 17A to try to streamline consolidation, he only wanted one government remaining. So he was not supportive of coterminous, and they only wanted one government. So when he did his 17A, it was to streamline and give money if you dissolved or merged two towns or three towns into one town or got rid of a village. He gave you that money because he wanted less government. When New Paltz took on the coterminous and said, for us to make this work, we believe we can't get rid of the village and we have to have the village and the town coterminous, but we'll have one governing body, okay? Because by the town and village remaining, everybody up in Albany kept believing it was still two governments. And the day that they passed the citizen empowerment the last year, I had a lot of senators and assembly people coming up and saying, but you're still two governments. And I said, no, we're operating as one government, but because we can't dissolve the town, you know, it's one government, but once a year we'll have to operate as a town because we have to be a town government. So once they understood it was just one governing body, a lot of the legislatures up there said, oh my God, this might be really good for my towns and Rockland and villages and whatever, and everybody started to look at us and said, maybe this is the answer to move forward. So yes, Kitty, it started where they didn't support it, but now they're more willing to accept it as a possibility, as a way to make consolidation work. The problem is all the laws that they have out there stand in the way of making it work.
The basic problem, Kitty, is that the way they worded this, they're saying, contrary to what we had hoped, that we can become one government either by dissolving the village, or we can become one government by the village annexing the town, neither of which we thought would work because we wanted the entire community to be able to vote on the proposition of one government. And that's the problem here, because we've got to find that narrow window to go through to be able to achieve one government functioning mainly or principally as a village, but also in a very narrow window as a town. And that's where we're trying to get to.
Can we just have Linda keep talking though? We had a long night,
Okay.
and everyone's gonna have opinions. I'd rather just hear
Okay.
someone that.
All right, so
actually
it
knows
might
a lot.
make a little more sense as we get through it. Thank you so much. The third bill I just mentioned, so you're aware of it, this really has nothing to do with the New Paltz situation. This is a bill that Conference of Mayors and a few others are trying to get through, just making some changes to the consolidation law. It is basically sitting dead in the legislature. It's my understanding it's not going anywhere because the leadership in the governor's office doesn't want to mess with the bill. All right, after you hired me, the first thing I did to make sure that I was not finding a problem where there wasn't one is to get in touch with the council's office of Department of State. Natasha Phillips, who is a very, very bright attorney with DOS and who deals with all these issues, was nice enough to meet with me on probably about 24 hours notice. Sat down, we went through all of these issues, and she confirmed to me that she agrees that 17A, as it is written now, does not authorize a coterminous town village of New Paltz, and that as of this moment, the only means to become coterminous is by annexation. So when we went through the options with her, what she said is, well, the means to become coterminous, you can create a new village with the same boundaries as the existing town, which doesn't work here because we've already got an existing village. You can have a special act of the legislature, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. You can have an annexation process, which we'll talk more about. Or you can take the existing town, carve out the part of the town that is coterminous with the village, make that a coterminous town village, and have a second town as sort of the donut around the donut hole. But those, by law, are the only ways that exist right now. Okay, so now we get to what the options are. And I'm giving you both the options that in my mind, have some likelihood of success and make sense, and the options that are even extreme that you probably won't want to consider, just so you know what all your options are. The first is to seek special legislation. Now, the three ways you could go about special legislation would be asking the legislature to amend 17A to specifically say consolidation can also be to create a coterminous municipality. Or ask them to introduce a special bill attached to 17A saying that the town village of New Paltz shall be allowed to use 17A to become coterminous. And the third thing is a special bill which is totally independent of 17A, which simply would be an act of the legislature authorizing the creation of a coterminous town village of New Paltz, not under 17A, not under village law, just as a special act of the legislature, obviously subject to subsequent approval by both boards and referendum by both communities. If we're talking about special legislation, the first question is, where's the governor at on this? That was the first thing I wanted to know. You know, it's fine if your members want to support this, but if the governor's office isn't on board, especially since we're talking about 6 weeks of session left, then, you know, you needed to know, is this a possibility for this year or isn't it? Again, I was very pleased that Jim Malatras, who is the governor's deputy secretary for public policy, met with me on about 24 hours notice, which on a session day I think was quite a feat that he was willing to do that for New Paltz. Spent a considerable period of time going over all the issues. Quite frankly, I don't think anybody really grasped what 17A left out. The message we received is the option of doing anything to 17A is not a viable option. There are,
number one.
that's number one and number two, essentially.
Okay.
Because there is such disagreement right now in Albany about 17A as it stands, that to try to reopen that law, if you reopen it for one thing, people are going to want to reopen it for a lot of other things. What we were told is the best route to go, and what the governor's office was very supportive of, was a special act of the legislature, simply independent of 17A, authorizing a coterminous process. That's how the town village of Green Island was created. And I'll go through how the others were created, just so you know what else is out there. That would allow you to get the authorization before session was out. And what I've said to Susan, what I've said to a few other board members I've spoken to is, if you get the authorization, that would not be a mandate. I don't think you want it to be a mandate. You want it to simply be the authorization to move forward. Then I think you have the time to sit down and really look, and I think CGR could play an important role in this, look at what all the options really are, both including and excluding going coterminous, and by what means, and making sure that everybody really wants the same thing before you jump into something that's kind of irrevocable once you do it. But getting the legislation in the next 6 weeks has to be part of that process, or there's going to be a need to wait another year to do it. And it's not something they're going to come back in a special session and do. So that is one option. It is a very viable option. We have already spoken to both your senator and your assemblyman's office. I've given them the contents of what I feel needs to be in a bill, and I have spoken directly to Senator Bonasek's office. Jerry Benjamin has spoken to Assemblyman Cahill's office, and I'm not hearing anything that they're unwilling to help us with this, and I'm just waiting to hear back from Senator Bonasek's office with some language. But we have support from the governor's office. They said anything we need them to do to help this along, they will help it along. So I think as long as we've got support in all three quarters, in all three areas, we're going to be fine. All right, the second option is annexation, which is the way that you're allowed to do it right now. And what would happen there is the village would annex the remainder of the town, and once that annexation was complete, you would then be a coterminous town-village. The main issue with annexation that I think was troublesome to people is the vote to annex is only held by those who live outside of the village. So only those who live outside of the village would actually determine if you're going to become coterminous, because only they would get to vote on expanding the village boundaries into their area. Once that happened, then everyone would vote on where you're going to run as a town or as a village. So you also need to understand that that would ultimately be out of the board's hands. The populace are the ones who vote on whether you're going to run as a town village. You can lobby all you want, you can advocate all you want, but ultimately, and that's the way it is in village law too, and that's the way it will likely be in a special bill if we have it. But ultimately, the vote on whether you're going to run as a town or a village is going to be in the hands of the people.
And
Yeah.
so there is no option under which we can choose some town forms and some village forms.
She's going to get to that.
I'm going to get to that, but the short answer is not except by an incredibly long shot.
Okay.
Well, I'll
Okay.
just preface it by more time, that's all. Well, she's going to get to that.
Okay, so the annexation, as I said, is your second option. The third would be, as I mentioned briefly, create a new town with the same boundaries of the existing village. And again, I'm telling you it just because it's an option, not because I think it's a viable option. You would then have a town of New Paltz, which would be the area that the town currently covers, and the area outside of that would become a separate town, which would not have a village in it and wouldn't be coterminous with anything. There are certainly a lot of people who would oppose that because it's kind of the opposite of consolidation. We're creating more communities and it really doesn't resolve any of the issues you want, but that is a way to get a coterminous town village.
But it's only
But
coterminous
for only part
of
of the town, the part that is now within the village,
Is that
not for
eligible
the
for
part.
citizen empowerment?
No,
No, okay. Didn't seem like it would be, but okay.
no.
And just a quick little aside, because you don't have that in here, but just like we could create a separate town outside the village, we could also create a separate village.
That's correct.
Outside the
You
town.
could, and then they could be coterminous.
And then they can, and then, you know.
And then we'd have 4 municipalities instead of the 2 we've got
Or
now.
you could have, but anyways,
2 coterminous municipalities, yes.
or 2 villages in one
Yeah.
town, but go ahead.
And I'm sorry, Lynn, last one. Just the one sentence. It does not address the concerns and desires of the communities. What are the concerns and desires of the communities?
Where are you? I'm sorry.
In option 3.
It was my understanding that you wanted something that involved the entire town, that addressed the entire town, and this doesn't do that, because that basically takes the town outside village and makes it a separate community and doesn't have it coterminous with anyone. That's just based on what I know of the situation. But
But I think, Jeff, if in a sense, the recommendation of the committee was to pursue a coterminous townwide village, so she's just operating on that assumption. Some of us might have different opinions, but that's the assumption that's
right,
been
and
brought
that's why
forward.
I'm giving you every
Right.
option,
Right.
because some of you folks might say, wow, we never thought of this, and let's look at this option.
You address the options are that we would be eligible for some of the Citizens Empowerment Grant that would not involve either consolidation for any of that? Like we were just getting government efficiency, which is also under the Citizens Empowerment Act.
I don't know if you're gonna be eligible if you have anything other than the consolidation. I would have to look into exactly what scenario you're looking at and talk to the folks at DOS. And I don't wanna jump
No,
to
that's
a
fine. No, that's
conclusion
fine.
on that.
Well, I mean, I just know a little bit in that there are other ways to benefit from the citizen empowerment, you know, through other consolidated efforts, but it's not, right now, Linda's here addressing the consolidation of governments because that's what she was hired to do.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean down the road that, yes, there aren't other ways we could take citizen empowerment. I mean, we could do some work with Highland and consolidate things with Highland and get some of that money. We could do things with the school district and get some of that money. So there's plenty of opportunities to possibly grab some of that money that we should actually be looking at. And when I was at the Association of Towns meeting, the guy from someplace down in Newburgh, I think you remembered where it was, Jeff, but there's someplace, some supervisor down in Orange County, they got like 4 grants from the Citizen Empowerment because of different consolidation things they did. It wasn't consolidating government, but they were consolidating services and got money, and we should be really looking at a lot of that. But right now,
and that's,
they're
and
just
we'll
talking
talk,
about,
well,
right.
we'll
We're
mention,
just
that's
talking about-
actually option
right.
5, is
Right.
talking about that. It doesn't get you the tax credit, but it might give
Well, you
you
can.
other benefits.
Right, exactly. So,
But where we got confused was by amending the finance law, which Jerry recommended that we do, and we went and we did, and that entitled us to the $1 million.
Right, it just didn't give you a way to get
It
there.
didn't give us the way to get there, Jeff.
That's,
got the
that's
money.
problem.
Right.
We got
You
the money,
yeah.
but not the process.
Right, right.
Well, because I guess where I'm confused, and I apologize, I did miss a couple meetings last month, but I guess where I'm a little confused is we left off in February being told by a lawyer, no, he wasn't, actually he was, he's hired legal counsel for the town board as our bond counsel, telling us that consolidation is really easy and we just need to throw up a simple referendum. And now I'm sitting here on April 30th being told that is not the case at all, it is not easy, and I'm not trying to bash another attorney, but I'm now getting something that
Yeah,
is certainly,
and I-
whatever, somewhere between 179 and 181 degrees, I think is where I'm looking at
Yeah.
right now.
well, I would actually
Well-
step back, Jeff, and say,
No, I don't need you to step back and say it, I'm
Oh,
simply
no,
stating that we
I'm
were
not saying-
told that
no,
this
I'm saying
is,
we were told that long before. That's what I'm saying. I think.
no, we were told that in February.
No, no, what I'm just trying to say is I think the
Actually, we were told that in March.
efficiency committee was told that there would be, believed there'd be an easier route. So
Okay.
anyway, we are where we are, so let's just.
Well, no, I'm trying to figure out where we are, because
Well, it has to finish.
that's a pretty big statement, that's saying the concerns and desires of the communities, when I'm looking at indicating that mechanically by process of consolidation is not difficult. And that's from an attorney that is actually works, that we actually have under contract. So, I mean, it seems, and that was told to us on February 28th, so now we're, March,
I
April,
do
we're,
think
it seems like we've come, now we're.
And that is the
laws
very
haven't changed
reason,
since
that
then.
is the very reason that the first thing I did was go to DOS's lawyers, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't seeing creating a problem that wasn't there. I think the consolidation law is so convoluted that I honestly think a lot of people thought, including a lot of people in Albany, just presumed that why wouldn't coterminous fit under this? It makes sense that it would. And it's only when you really start picking it apart, you realize that there's an issue there.
Just a quick other aside, we're not the only people facing the problem. When the Department of State had said that the city, there's 5 villages in Rye,
Yeah.
1 town and 1 city that's looking to consolidate, and they're going through very similar problems. I don't even know if they're looking at coterminous, they're just looking to consolidate, and they're going through a lot of problems with 17A, creating roadblocks, and they're not even going the difficult route we are. And what the DOS said was that they're having many roadblocks and having a very difficult time. And the Department of State is even saying that this whole process is problematic, and they're very frustrated. So,
I think what I'm seeing here is that the obstacle here is that we wanted all village residents and all town residents to be able to vote
Correct.
on this process.
Correct.
And determine their fate.
And the easy routes allow either village residents to dissolve or town residents to annex. And that's what 17A
Right,
permits, and that is an
Correct.
easy route. And it's really a disappointment that in trying to work together,
there's a lot of roadblocks. in there.
that's an obstacle.
Well,
But anyway,
So let me just run through the rest of it quickly, and
Right.
then we can talk more about the options. And you just
But you
mentioned
summed it up.
one of them. The option 4 is to, which again, I don't think you want to do, but
Right.
I'm laying it out.
Yeah.
You could dissolve the village, just function as a town. There is a lockout period, which I believe is a couple of years, and if you decide you're interested, and I'll look at it in more depth, that after which you could create a new village, which would be coterminous with the town. So the old village in New Paltz would go away, and after you'd function just as a town for a few years, and then you would create a new village that would encompass the entire boundaries of the town and ultimately have your coterminous town village. But that's a longer process.
Did you get the $1
Another-
million?
Maybe someday if they're still doing it. And option 5, Susan was talking about sharing services. Long before consolidation came along, Article 5G of the General Municipal Law dealt with sharing of services. That's something people have been doing since the 60s when it came into being. And there are a lot of things you could do. I'm sure you have done some already and could look at doing more and saying, we're not going to consolidate. We're just going to look at more efficiencies between the town and the village. And likely there's a lot of different grants and funds available from DOS rewarding that kind of behavior. So that is another option to look at if the decision is to not go with coterminous. The 6th option is the one that Kitty was asking about. Can we pick some from column A, some from some column B, and maybe some from column C? And that is something that it's not an impossibility, but it would require years, I would suspect, of negotiating with the state legislature and the governor's office, because essentially what you'd be saying to them is, we want to change the face of local government in New York State. We want to not be like all the other towns and all the other villages and all the other cities. We want to be this new entity. And it may be better. It may be a great idea, but you're asking them to basically recreate government in New York State. And that's something that I would consider a 5 to 10 year project of lobbying the state legislature to get that, because that, first of all, then you're going to get all the associations involved, and it's going to be the question of what is the door they're opening, what is the Pandora's box they're opening, and would it happen? It's possible. Would it happen easily or quickly? No.
How does that differ from under option 1, paragraph 3, or not paragraph 3, bullet?
It differs from, because option 1, I want to make sure.
Option 1 and
Separate.
Right,
number
that
3.
would be simply allowing you to become coterminous, as 5 other communities are in this state, and function just as they function. Not picking some of the best of each, and maybe we'll have an elected highway superintendent even though we're going to run as a village, and it's not creating something new. It's just getting special authorization to do it. But there was a proposal, I can't recall who it was who had that proposal that showed this kind of new and different government that somebody was talking about, which was really, truly creating, I mean, you couldn't call it a town, you couldn't call it a village. It was going to allow the municipality to make some of its own decisions about operations whenever they saw fit. It's something that, you know, can I guarantee you it would never pass the state legislature? No, but I can guarantee you it's something that would take years and years of
And there's no
lobbying to
state
try to get.
governance
And there's, yeah.
to control that,
Yeah.
because it's neither a town nor a village, and
right.
there's no
It-
law.
it-
Option 3 in, number 3 in option 1, Jeff?
Mhm.
It's giving us the ability to,
Yeah, she just explained it,
yeah,
yeah. Yep,
not
no,
that
no,
we use you're operating as town or village, so
Yep, no.
not, you know,
So the reality is, if your desire is to have the ability to try to become coterminous, the only two viable means out there right now is to say we're going to do it by annexation, which means not everybody has a say, or we're going to ask for this special bill, which will then, and I told the legislature, I didn't want it to be a bill creating the town village, because my understanding is you wanted people to be able to have a say, and the boards to be able to have a say. So it would simply allow the creation subject to both boards authorizing a referendum, so it gives another vote, even though you do a home rule bill to get the bill through, it would require another vote by each governing body and a majority from each electorate, both the village and the town.
which is actually what everybody was working
Right.
under the assumption of. I
Right.
believe
That's what we
was-
thought we
That's
were
what we thought we
going
were
to do.
doing under,
Right.
that's what we always were, whatever, and this is getting us to what we always believed we had.
Right. Just in case you're curious, I was putting together, and I couldn't print it out because I didn't have access to a printer here. Just to give you a little bit about how the other 5 coterminous communities function. East Rochester, which is up in my area, it's interesting, its code doesn't even refer to it. I know I have a lot more detail in
okay,
here
okay.
because I was working on it more on the train.
Oh, okay.
I have a little bit there. I'll get you this more extensive
Okay.
memo when I go back home and I can email it out. The code doesn't even refer to it as a town village. It refers to it as a village code. You wouldn't know looking at the code that it was any kind of coterminous community. It has basically village offices, mayor, trustee, a village administrator. The majority of these coterminous communities have a manager or administrator. It has town justices, though, not village justices. So everybody's village, but they have town justices. They have joint board meetings, they have a village clerk, and they have the East Rochester Volunteer Fire Department, which is run through a fire district. Mount Kisco has a village mayor and a village manager. It functions exclusively as a village and has a volunteer fire department which contains 4 separate fire companies. Harrison, and if anyone doesn't know, Mount Kisco's down in the, is it Westchester or Rockland
It's
County?
Westchester.
Westchester County, and Harrison's down that way, and Scarsdale's down that way. That's where the majority of them are. Harrison, they created a new village with the exact same boundaries as the existing town. It refers to itself as a town-village board. Everybody has dual titles, so the person is called supervisor mayor. They have one clerk, but they call it a town clerk, but they call the code a village code. I mean, these places are a little schizophrenic in the way they run things. And the interesting thing is they have 2 separate attorneys. They run as one community, but have a town attorney and a village attorney, and I have to call them. I got their phone numbers today and find out why, because I can't quite figure out why they have 2
Because they
separate
were both
attorneys.
popular and they didn't want to get rid of one.
Yeah, don't mess things up.
Right, Joe?
But what I guess I sort of don't understand
Mhm.
is if the legislation is such that you have to operate as a town or a village.
Mhm.
So you choose to operate as a village, you operate as a village. You choose to operate as a town, you operate as a town. But from what you're saying in here, they are mixing and matching.
For some of these
But they're
old
not getting
ones,
citizen empowerment money.
Well, they're gonna have this because
No,
that was
no,
way before there was
no.
ever citizen empowerment money.
and they still do have to primarily run as a town or a village.
But the trick, I
But
think,
I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask, I just wanted before I finish this up, it was before citizen empowerment, but take that aside for a moment. It's still, as I'm understanding it, there was laws in place under village law,
Right.
how you could go do coterminous, but you still had to operate as either a village or a
Primarily,
town.
and they do each run primarily, most of them primarily as a village, but then they have these
the
bizarre
ability
little
to-
things
okay,
thrown
so
in.
they have the
But
ability-
we don't see
We could
anything
do-
like,
We could do what our efficiency study recommended, we just wouldn't be eligible for citizen empowerment. I mean, is that not the case?
Well, you still have to run I don't have the
Right,
whole.
we could run primarily as a village
Right.
and do what these other towns are doing. We just wouldn't get our
As
citizen.
well,
No,
yes
I
and
still get it.
No. There's a trick here. None of these were villages and towns. What happened was, they wanted a village, so they imposed a new village
yeah, these all.
Right.
on an old town.
But
We have, and have had for a very long
we
time.
can do whatever we want, but
No, we
not-
can't,
but we
Kitty,
can't
that's
get
the-
the citizen
No,
empowerment.
you can't do, it's not like you can
No.
say, we're going to run as a village, but we're gonna have an elected highway superintendent.
So under
can't do
village
that
law, you
because you've got-
cannot have those positions.
You don't
be
have elected clerk, you don't have
can't have a
elected.
referendum that would
No.
change that.
No.
And the
you
thing
wanna
that
do that, you
makes
gotta run
us
as
so
a town.
different is we're trying to put an existing village
Mm-hmm.
and an existing town
Right.
together as a coterminus. We're not trying to create a new village out of the town of New Paltz like Harrison did.
Right,
We're not trying to create a new village like Scarsdale did.
right.
We've got a village and we've got a town. The question is, how can we bring us together in a way that makes everything work for the
Mhm.
community and everybody in the community gets to vote on it? That's the thing.
Let me just, and then I
Well, also
just-
Mount Kisco, Harrison, and Scarsdale have a big advantage where the average household income is about $500,000 a year. So a citizens empowerment grant means absolutely
not a
nothing
big
to
deal.
them.
Well,
It's-
Scarsdale
yeah.
did it in
Yeah.
1930, so.
No, I guess the question that I have is, they were all towns, and they chose to impose a village over it, and was that because they believed the village form of government was a better form of government, so therefore they wanted to operate as a village versus a town? Because for what other reason would you add an extra layer of government over an existing government?
Well,
to-
yes and no. Some of them were that way. The village of East Rochester was partly in the town of Pittsford, the town of Parrington. They didn't like being torn like that, so they actually created a new town overlaying the village. And that became the coterminous town village of East Rochester. Mount Kisco, originally the village of Mount Kisco, again, was partly in town of Bedford, partly in Newcastle. Same thing, they were unhappy with that, they created a new town of Mount Kisco. Harrison created a new village with the exact same boundaries as the existing town. Scarsdale created a new village with the exact same boundaries. And Green Island was created by special act of the legislature, creating the town village of Green
Which I
Island.
think is probably the only
Yeah.
way we can go.
And that's really, if you don't want to go by annexation, which disenfranchises essentially those within the village, at least as to whether it happens or not, then the real option is to try to get this special act through.
And that
Brian,
would
did you-
create a town-wide village.
Excuse me?
That would create a town-wide village.
That would create the coterminous town village of New Paltz,
It would
yes.
cre- no,
Acting principally as a village.
Actually, it would create.
No, that would still have to be voted on by the
Well,
residents.
Now,
Right, if you
how
do it
then-
by annexation, the next vote
The
is
next vote
by
is,
everyone as
Yeah.
to whether it will operate principally as a village
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
or principally
This
as
is the
a
bill.
town.
right,
And any new coterminous town village established after July 1st, 2012, that operates principally
right,
as a town or as a village,
right,
okay?
right.
So that takes care of that.
It doesn't give the board the right to decide that, because the village law still says it's gotta be by a vote.
Okay, that's where
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
got,
And there's no question that the state legislature, if they do this, they're gonna wanna be sure they're not disenfranchising the residents.
but
And
I
they're
also
gonna
want to make sure if we
there's a vote.
go and do it this special
Yeah.
way, that we're not disfranchising ourselves out of the $1 million after we work so hard to get it.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And, you know, one of the things I've spoken to Bonasek and Cahill's people about is that annexation language that's in there now. There's two options. One is they can fix that bill. Plus, we'll still need our special act, but they can fix the bill to get rid of the word annexation or to say annexation or by other act of the legislature,
But
which
that
is what
was
I've asked them
added.
to do. Right. Or what the governor's office said is worst case scenario, if they don't want to bother playing around with that bill since it's passed the assembly already, then we'll simply put language in the new bill that says for purposes of this act, all the regulations that apply to annexation will also apply
And that's
to
what you
this.
recommend.
Either way, it's neater for future reference. If people go back years from now and look at the legislation, it's neater if they can fix this bill, and then we have our new bill. But if there are political things that get in the way of that, then we just clarify it in the new bill.
So what should we do?
I'm waiting to hear from Bonasek and Cahill as to which they'll do, because it's their call. They're the ones who have to
We
amend.
can't tell you.
No, you folks have to say whether you want to move forward with legislation. If you want to move forward with this special act concept, then what we do is keep working with Bonasek and Cahill and the governor's office to get that accomplished.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Stuart.
Are you saying then that if we take option one here, the new bill, that at the end of the day, then the money, the funds will be available?
The funds will be available. You will
I think that
have,
would be important.
you will have the ability to vote on, you won't be forced to be coterminous if the new bill goes through. You will have the ability to have each board vote for a referendum and then each community vote. One of the, as I said to Susan and to Sally and kind of everybody I've spoken to, I would strongly recommend, since there have been a lot of surprises in the past 8 weeks, that if this bill goes through, that everybody kind of take a breath and maybe use the summer to sit down and say, okay, what really was bad or good about annexation? What really is bad or good about each of these options? What are we really going to get by becoming coterminous as opposed to sharing more services? Just to make absolutely certain. Not trying to talk you out of doing anything, but suggesting that you want to make absolutely certain as to that you understand the intricacies of what you're getting and the intricacies of how you're going to run, and that that's what you want. Because no matter what, you're not going to be able to have a referendum until November. So you've got some time to sit back, and in fact, it is likely whatever bill goes through, if it has a sunset at all, meaning the vote's got to happen by a certain time, that sunset would be for 2014. So you really, except for wanting the tax credit money, you would have no obligation to vote on it this coming November. You could choose to study the issue a little further.
But if we want the money,
Then you got to move
and
forward.
if
Yes.
the efficiency, if the community understands what the efficiency committee studied and recommended and why they recommended it, to go back and discuss annexation and disincorporation again is sort of silly.
Or even just to make sure everyone's clear on the way the coterminous will run.
Right.
To me, that's very important.
I agree.
Because clearly there have been some misunderstandings already. And, you know, I'm not doing this to create more business for myself. I'm saying among yourselves and probably with CGR, it would be a great thing to sit and study all the options and make sure.
But to be fair to
Yeah.
the two boards,
Yeah,
the Secretary of State's office understood less than we did, okay?
I wouldn't say
So-
everyone in the Secretary of State's
Well,
office. Their counsel
I mean,
doing great.
you know,
with this, but
we
I understand that there
were
was some
led down the
confusion.
primrose path and then told, oh gee whiz, no, you can't do that, you have to do annexation. After we sat and said, no, that's not what we want to do. So I don't think these two boards are any less or more confused than the
No.
state of New York itself.
I think Joe, if it's okay, I think Joe, you had a question?
Just on that issue and the issue of the tax credit, Linda, if,
Can,
assuming that,
It's on,
assuming that the legislature adopts that A 2051 bill that removes the obligation to leave only a town if
Right,
you do it by
right.
annexation. If that got passed and if it were done by annexation, it would still qualify for the
Yes.
tax credit.
Yes.
Right, okay.
We only need the extra bill if we don't want to do it by annexation.
So that language about the town survives
Right,
is the
Is what?
key change there,
yeah.
okay.
yeah,
But you could, if that passes and you did it by annexation,
then you're
you'd
done.
still get the tax credit.
That's correct.
And there would still be a certain amount of voter approval on the first issue.
Only
Should-
town outside village
Should
would
the town
vote.
be annexed, only the town outside
Correct.
the village
Right.
would vote.
Then everyone
But-
votes on how you're going to run.
But that's a significant
Yes,
portion
Right.
of the community
But the
outside.
converse is disincorporation and only the village gets to
Right.
vote. And the town has no say whether it wants,
Right, the only question I'm asking is though, in that scenario, it puts the village out of business if they
Yes.
vote to dissolve.
right,
An annexation vote, if I understand it
You're right.
correctly,
No,
and I'm
you're
not
right.
the expert
That's
on
true.
annexation,
Right.
the meetings that would get held between, well, in front of each separate board, as well as the joint meetings that have to
Yes.
happen in annexation, while village people wouldn't be able to maybe vote on that issue, they certainly would have the right to be heard about their concerns.
yes, yes.
And if the town outside the village voted not to annex the village, it doesn't put the village out of business.
Right.
no, it
Okay,
just
like
keeps
a
the status
dissolution.
quo.
Right.
Like it just leaves it as a status quo, in which
Right.
case you've
It
got,
leaves it as a status
a
quo.
certain number of
It doesn't
people-
resolve any of the historic problems these two communities have had.
that's true.
And the efficiency committee, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kitty, the whole idea of the recommendation was that we would like to see New Paltz function as one community,
Right.
and that each and every citizen within the village and the town should have a say as to whether we should be one community.
Then you need the special
That
bill.
was the whole purpose of the
Well,
recommendation.
would have a vote,
Everybody would have a vote.
right, not
So-
necessarily a say.
No, but my point is, no one group is deciding the fate for another group. We're gonna decide our fate together equally in that sense.
Okay, so that's one option. I'm surprised that village residents can't vote in annexation because they can vote in every other town election. And so they're specifically prohibited
That's why
from
it's
this
not, that's
one?
not just village residents. In any annexation, the only people who vote are people being annexed.
I see.
See, I think
So if you
I
had a
agree with
city,
you.
you had a city that was annexing part of a town, the only people, the people in the city wouldn't vote on that, just the people in the area of the town that was being annexed. That's just the way annexation law works.
But it makes sense in the sense of you have the right to dissolve yourself as a village, and the impact is felt by the town outside the village,
has no
and they don't have a
say.
say. So simultaneously, in the annexation, the people outside the town, if they choose to want to be annexed to the village, technically the village residents don't have a say, but it's the same, it's, you know, either way, it's giving power to one
You
versus the other.
can argue that annexation has the impact on both groups, and
Oh,
really
I-
both
sure.
groups
Well, either
should
one,
vote,
either
but
one, well,
that's
either
the state
one.
law, so you're not
I'm just saying
changing that.
dissolution or annexation, regardless, it has an impact on the other municipality, but in both cases, the other municipality has no say.
Right.
That's
Wait.
all.
And all we're
Wait,
trying to
wait,
do is
wait.
let everybody
Just
have a
say
say.
Because when we did the annexation of the Niffen property,
I was just gonna say.
so, you know, a
The night.
town property asked to be annexed into the village, and we said, you can, but then they had to go to the village.
They had to ask
From-
permission of the village, and there was
I thought-
no vote other than the village board to allow them to annex into the village.
There
We have a law where if we provide access with the water in order to do so, you have to be annexed within the village, except a few properties that are within the town. But for the most part, everyone who receives water services has been annexed into the village
And the town
without a
has permission
vote,
first?
but I guess just their permission or they're asking to be added to the water system.
Yeah,
That's a vote.
that's.
But
But, I
something-
mean, that is.
Well, I
an
think they went
important-
to the village for a different reason than annexation.
Right.
They
They
went
went for water.
to see if it would be okay to see if they would get water and sewer. I mean, they were
So-
getting information from the village for a different reason.
And they came to us for annexation,
Yeah,
but
the
there was a single
petition for
property owner. There's
annexation.
only one property owner.
Right.
But
And
did-
they,
Oh, then that's
it
that
was,
property.
it's just
owner.
completely
There's
different.
no
Yeah, so
need for
Brian's
both.
confusing a couple different things here.
petition
Okay.
He wanted to
Yeah,
make
Jess
sure,
got it right.
first he wanted to make sure that if he was annexed, would you allow him to
That
get water and
explains it.
sewer?
It's just that one
And then there was
property
only a
owner.
single property owner, the
That's
Niffen, well,
what-
Niffen
okay.
brothers.
He had a big property.
Right.
Floyd Niffen was the owner, and then he said, I want annex, so then we
So
allowed
there's
him.
nobody
And
to
that's
vote,
happened
yeah.
several, Woodland Ponds is another example.
Yeah.
But do we
Woodland
have to-
Ponds in the past was annexed to the village because it had one property owner.
But
That was
aren't there
long
other
ago.
properties in the opposite of Henry W. that have also done that, or am I
Yeah,
mistaken?
Victorian Square.
Victorian Square would be, on the- but that was a single
But
property.
it's a single property.
Does the, just out of, I mean,
Was that
Joe,
annexed, Vic?
does the town board have to first give them permission to allow them to go to the village to get permission to be annexed, or the town board really has no say?
If history, Joe, you can help me here, there was a small movement 15 years ago or so out, what is now Sewer District 6, they were considering annexing themselves to Lloyd. And if I remember, we had no say in that. They tried to organize, and Lloyd was not interested, though.
Right, you had a little different situation when you had adjoining municipalities, like two different towns. We've had that happen with a single property. Once again, it was a single
Right.
property. But the petition for annexation by Niffen was to the town board,
Yes.
I mean, essentially for
Yeah.
an
To give
annexation.
permission
So.
to.
But do they need, but do they have to have, I mean, we're getting off the track. I
No,
mean,
no,
I think the
but
purpose is
the
just,
track
I
Yes.
is, do
know what you're saying.
It's like
How
a
do,
school
if the
district.
village has a law that says, if you're gonna be annexed, we have to approve your water supply, how would that affect the possibility of annexation?
I'd have to take a look at that village law. It's not something I'm familiar with.
As I
You-
understand it,
I know
it's
what
a
you're saying.
twofold thing. The party that you want to annex from, in this case the town, must give permission.
Well, the voters would vote to.
No, I'm
No.
talking about single property owner.
But let's talk about where we are right now.
Okay.
If the town residents, everything else fails and the town residents vote to annex, but the village has to approve, the village law says in order to annex, we have to approve access to sewer and water.
Well, you can actually answer that, and Joe would be probably, could
They're
answer it
two
with some,
different
Joe
issues,
can answer
Steve.
some with legalese, which is one thing. So for example, let's just say the whole town annexes, because we have looked at this, the whole town annexes into the village. That's where you now end up with special districts. And that would be one of the many issues that we're facing here. Why, one of the options I really believe we should be looking at is annexing, and I've spoken to everyone on the board on this, and I haven't spoken to you, and I apologize, you've spoken to many people, but I don't even know who you are.
Oh, you are,
I honestly,
Oh.
I don't even know who you are. You were actually here one time. I wasn't invited to
Yeah.
meet with you. I don't know why, but I don't even know you. So nice to meet you finally.
This is Jeff Logan.
Very nice to meet you. So there are other opinions out there. So you said you've spoken to everyone, but I
Well,
think
she
there's
said-
No, I
more
didn't
engagement
say
that needs
she
to
didn't
take
say that,
place.
Jeff. She didn't say that.
She said spoken. Actually wrote it down. Spoken. I've spoken to everyone. That was something she said. So I'm just writing your words down. So I'm just trying to say. So I think one of the things to be looked at would be annexation of areas where we have water and sewer districts already, because they already are getting those services. Those outside wouldn't be eligible for it, because you would have to make special districts unless you wanted to put in hundreds of millions into infrastructure, which no
Right,
one is
but,
prepared
I
for.
mean,
We're trying to do this
90%
to
of
save
the
money.
town- Right, 90% of the town is on well and septic.
I don't know the percentages, but you'd have to look at Cherry Hill, for example, is a mix, but is mostly well and septic, and that's a pretty large population there. You know, we have 350 water users, sewer users, I believe. That sounds about right. Water and sewer users in the town, in the village. Those would be easy to those would be easy to annex, because they're currently getting services from the village. When you get outside, now that's where we're going to get into special districts. Whether
Right.
myself out on Plains Road, should we want water and sewer, we would have to go to the village board and talk to them and say, hey, are you willing to put in $10
Right,
million?
you're missing the point of consolidating the government processes, and that's
Right.
I think a large
Absolutely.
portion of it.
Oh, I absolutely agree. The point is to try to save money here, not try to spend more.
Well, that's it.
But-
But I
but-
mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sally.
I think we're talking about two different kinds of annexation. Pretend the village had no water and sewer, and we were a village within a town. The process of annexation, as Linda is talking about, is very different than annexation for the purposes of water and sewer. They're just totally different concepts.
Except
One,
if you do
I
have
mean, they
this
can
law
have
on
a
your books.
crossover, but
Well, we
but they
just
aren't
need to-
necessarily
just
the
need to
same
ask
at
them.
all.
I think, let me just ask a quick.
Sally.
It's something I think that everybody
Thank
would
you.
have to look at, and the village would have to look at the impacts of that as you explore this idea of possibly doing it by annexation.
Right,
And
and
again,
that's
I'm not
one
the
of the
expert.
reasons I said, if you have an interest in looking at becoming coterminous other than by annexation, even an interest, even if you're not sure that's what you want, getting the bill through, which doesn't commit you to anything, and still requires these boards to vote again, and the residents to vote again, is probably something to do. And then you can sit back and say, okay, now we're going to really debate these topics. If you still have an interest in annexation, we can all talk about why annexation might work, what the problems might be, as opposed to what do we get if we're just coterminous by act of the state legislature? What does the village law require in terms of how we're going to function if we function as a village? These are the kind of details that I could be wrong, but I'm not certain everyone's discussed in detail.
I
And
agree.
that's why I'm saying, if you have even an interest in doing it for November election, get the bill through, have it there in your pocket, and then sit back,
And try
get
and design
CGR back in here, because part of what they were gonna do was facilitating
Right.
discussions. Obviously, part of my role under my current contract is to give legal advice on that and look at what all these options really mean. And then we can look at things like, what is this village law, which I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with. What does this law require, and how would that be effective if we annex as opposed to becoming coterminous?
Our other attorney has a
Yeah,
question.
Well,
Too many attorneys.
since we're talking about all these wrinkles, there's one more wrinkle. As you explained, if we had the special bill, then it would allow us to proceed if we wanted to, and the two boards would have to vote. And then if they voted to have a referendum, then the people would get
Right.
to vote. Under the new law, even if the board don't vote to do it, 20% of the electors can put it on the ballot. If the people want to do it, but the board doesn't, it's,
Do what?
that's still
Petition.
resolve.
to have the referendum.
To do what?
Well,
Because the 17A, if you're thinking about the consolidation law provisions that allow a citizen mandate, that won't apply because 17A does not apply to coterminous
no, I
communities.
understand that, but I'm just saying, would we consider that in this special bill, or does that fog it up too much? In other words, let's say the people
Right.
in both municipalities really wanted to do this. One of the boards didn't want to do it, and then they're stymied. Whereas under the other law,
Right,
20% of the electors
Right.
say, well, we don't care what you think, we want you to put it on the referendum and let us decide. Would there be an aspect of that in this special bill, or is
well,
that too confusing?
what I anticipated in the special bill, although you folks can say something different, is that in order to be sure it was what everyone wanted, it would require both boards to give an affirmative vote, and only after they gave an affirmative vote could it then go to the citizens. The citizen initiative only exists in 17A.
Right.
And 17A doesn't apply here. So I don't think the legislature would be inclined to put a citizen initiative in if that was the desire of the bodies, we could talk to the legislature
well, I
and the
would-
governor's office
And
about it.
But I would, I'm not 100% sure in a sense, because, again,
I don't know the
the 17A, like you said, it allows the residents to petition to put something up. I think that the governor's office is serious enough about letting the public have a vote, because through their citizen empowerment, whatever, that if you do a petition, at least right now, the only option is dissolving the village, okay? But if you petition to force a referendum on dissolving the village by the citizens, there's actually, and the board chooses not to put it up, they have to, and there's even money from the citizen empowerment to give to the board to pay for that referendum. So I would sort of suspect in a way, if I understand what Stu is asking, if we're going to ask for special legislation that allows Newport specifically to try to form a coterminous, to give the residents a choice of whether or not they want a coterminous government, but if one of the boards choose not to allow that to go forward, that there'd still be a mechanism to allow the public
Right.
to do it. And I would think that both the senator and the assemblyman and the governor would not want to deny the public the ability
I agree.
to have control over their destiny. So I don't think it's-
Against the wishes of the, I mean, that, the question too is what these,
No, but
boards
again, the
want.
fact that they have money available for citizens to petition and force the board to have, to give the money to the board to pay for the referendum the board doesn't want. You're having the residents say to the government, we want this opportunity. The government is saying, we don't want to give it to you. They say, we want to do it, here's this, and then the government has now even said, and on top of it, here's the money that the citizens will get for the referendum to happen, and the village, and the government, which would be a village government because it's dissolution, has no choice.
But that is where I think there is so much confusion in 17A, because if you look in the definitions,
Yeah.
annexation is not a consideration. It is consolidation or dissolution. And that is where I think a lot of the confusion began. Because if I say, Jeff, let's consolidate, and there's nothing here that says it has to be by dissolution, then you and I might conclude we could get together and put a package together. And that is the problem with 17A.
well, but I think, I'm still not sure if we've gotten to Stewart's point.
Well,
I
I'm just saying, if you're
understand,
doing a special bill, is it possible to, and if it is it
wise.
recommended to
Yeah.
do, that we,
I
put
mean,
that option in?
I will say
If
honestly.
it makes it very difficult to get it passed, if there's
Yeah.
some kind of block that I'm not aware of, then I
Yeah.
don't think we should do
I-
it, but I'm just asking.
I will say honestly, most municipalities, I think rightly so, live in fear of the citizen initiative component, because essentially they can force a vote on something that they have not thoroughly studied, that they may not be ready to deal with the ramifications of. And that's why they have, in my mind, the elected bodies to decide if we're going to move forward with this and then vote on it. Now, if you want to say, we'll leave it in their hands, and if we don't pursue it, they can make us pursue it, especially given the complexities of coterminous. I can ask to put it in the bill. I think that creates a far more complex situation for you.
I see, I don't, and I mean, I think, again, part of the problem with consolidation is sometimes it's the elected officials who stand in the way of what the public wants. Because the elected officials, are trying to protect their jobs and their turf. And that's part of the problem with why the governor's office is saying they don't want to go back and open up 17A, because they don't want to take on the Association of Towns, and they don't want to take on, NICOM, and they don't want to take on whatever, because everybody's trying to protect. So, again, my belief is that the governor believes so much in consolidation, and the fact that through the Citizen Empowerment Act, he actually put aside money for a citizen initiative to not only be able to happen, but to have funding so that the referendum happens, that I think in some ways it's really just, I don't see this.
But if we go the special legislative route, and that passes, and the referendum fails,
Mhm.
there's nothing stopping citizens from coming back a year later and putting together their own referendum, is there?
Well,
Not on a special act, because you
they,
Right,
have
but
so much
it would
time
be
to do
but
it.
they
separate.
really wouldn't have the authority to, under current law, put together their own referendum for a coterminous. They could put together a referendum seeking
And that's
dissolution.
dissolved. Okay.
That's why I think what Stuart's asking is if we're gonna do special legislation to allow New to give the voters a choice of coterminous government with both bodies voting, that we also want to give the public the ability to vote if the boards block it.
Yeah, I'm not saying we should do that, but I think we should know it's possible because
Well,
citizens want us to look at every possibility. And, you know, to get 20% of the electors to sign something, I mean, that's no easy task. It's, you know, you can't make it sound like it's frivolous or
well,
something.
and not to
Let's
put you
test the
folks on the
water.
spot, but you need to make a determination about that, because I at this point, I've given the basic components to Senator Bonasak's office for them to start crafting language. If you want another component in there, that's something that I don't think it requires a vote, I just need a directive as to where I'm going with this. We need to,
So there's another part of this that will reimburse the community for consultant fees and helping to bring the consolidation process to a vote. And
now you're talking about parts of 17A again.
Yeah.
And they're
Okay.
not gonna, they're not gonna.
No. What Kitty's talking about is, it's under the Citizen Empowerment Grant, for the grants.
Right,
Okay, and I'm not gonna take anything at face value anymore,
Yeah.
going to what I've been told, but what, again, because the two boards are moving forward to the next phase of trying to get to a potential
Right.
referendum, the state understands they give you money to do a study, and then what happens more often than not is they don't have the money to take it to the next step, so the study ends up on the shelf. And they talked about the Association of Towns.
Yeah.
This is not my language. It's the other language of the people presented. So what the state basically does is then they almost sort of say it's almost as right to that now when you get to the next phase, you can get a $50,000 grant, which both boards authorized us to apply for
Right.
to help us now. Well, in essence,
Underwrite
defray
your expenses.
your expenses and
But
see
my
yours.
understanding is that if the referendum fails, we are not eligible.
No, you're not
no.
eligible for the 90%, you're eligible for 50%.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so the only reason we
It's
haven't applied for
14%.
the only reason I haven't worked on the application, which I was authorized to do, was I was waiting to see who we hired and then work with whoever we hired to help craft that grant, because it would be more accurate than just me.
But I want to take Stuart's question in a different direction, because I'm not sure how we could do this. All right. We go for the special bill,
Get the
but
microphone a little
one-
closer.
one group of us, is there a way, once we go to ask for the special bill, that we are required to make some sort of gesture of goodwill to each other? That if the bill is enacted and we get the special legislature, that we will, to the best of our ability, work together to present something to the community.
I mean, that's not gonna be in the bill. You folks can adopt a resolution to that effect. I think that's really the only thing I can suggest in that regard. That's really not gonna be in the bill. But the one thing that you need to, amongst yourselves, and it doesn't have to be tonight, but I don't know when you have work meetings, but you need to make a decision tomorrow, soon,
Well,
as to whether you want another component in there that allows, and again, I don't know if how the governor's office is gonna feel about that, I've gotta talk to them. But if you want it, I mean, the more complicated this gets, the harder it's gonna be to get
That's
through
right.
in 6 weeks. And the more it starts looking at 17A, the more nervous they're gonna,
Well, I don't think.
Yeah.
Go ahead. But-
Review again the component that you think is being discussed.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Because I've lost
Webcast.
track.
what I'm hearing is, the way we're proposing the bill now is it would authorize the creation of the coterminous town village of New Paltz, subject to vote of both governing bodies and referendum of both communities. What I'm hearing now is there might be a desire for an extra provision in that bill saying, should either board fail to bring this to referendum, 20% of the electorate, we can work on the exact language, can petition to force the matter to the ballot.
But I think that's provided in 17A anyway.
Doesn't apply to
But
this.
17A, we're not
Right.
functioning under 17A. And then, then you've got the issue too, is what do you do if, let's say neither board acts, and then you get the 20% from the town and don't get the 20% from the village, then you've got a vote in one place which doesn't matter because there's not a vote. So it
And the other-
does
and
muck up
that's
the
like-
waters a
And
lot.
that's like the annexation issue.
Right.
That you're not letting if the
Right.
goal is to try and get everybody to vote,
Then I think
that would
Then-
defeat that same
The
purpose.
clearer way is both boards and then the community, but again,
But
that's
wait,
your
no.
call.
Right, but if
I
a
think-
referendum, I'm sorry, if a referendum was brought by the public, then it would still have to, come to a vote of both communities, correct?
And the boards would have to come up with a plan,
Yeah.
so,
Right,
I
so
mean, you're not serving anybody's purpose by providing a provision for petition. I think what we're gonna have to do
Yeah,
is rely in good faith on each other.
Well, I think what you're missing here, one thing is, and Brian, if I understand your question, is let's be careful here, and then there's more than enough attorneys here to correct me, is there's no referendum that's gonna happen in a town, because we can't do anything. I can't pass a referendum in a town to take over a village. The only possible referendum that could be petitioned would be the village to dissolve.
Or the
That-
town can.
no, but if
No, what they're
Well, I gotta- wait,
suggesting,
can I-
what
but-
they're, what
All right,
Stuart's-
to Kitty's point, no. You just can't, you're not gonna get a referendum for the town to annex into the village. You need to have a town. We cannot take over the village, and there is not a mechanism right now to take over a village.
No, but we
But if this
can.
special act, if this
If
special
it changes,
act,
right where we are now, nothing
Right.
changes though.
if this,
Nothing
if the
changes.
special act authorizes the creation of the coterminus, subject to the vote of both boards and a referendum, it could, if you desire, we could ask the legislature to put a provision in saying, if either or both boards refuses to bring it to a vote, a certain percentage of the electors can force it to come to a vote.
But that would be requiring that we bring in a special.
no, it would be a petition.
With the special legislation.
Special
This would be part of the
That would-
special
but
legislation.
Currently now, none of that exists.
No,
so-
currently now none of
Well,
that.
it does
Wait.
exist.
But we're still making
Wait,
special
let-
legislation anyway. It would just
Let's
be.
let's say we get,
Right, but we're not in the
let's say we
paper.
get our special legislation passed
Right,
without this 20%. And one board says, votes not to pursue it. And so, at that point, the board that does vote to pursue it
mhm.
has the option. If it's the town can call a vote to annex itself to the village.
Well, but it wouldn't
If
be,
it's-
annexation isn't the correct term, because this special bill is not gonna be for
Forget it,
annexation.
if the special bill passes,
Right,
but one of the boards
oh,
then says,
as
we're
an
not interested.
alternative, you mean?
Right.
So that fails.
Yes.
So the board that votes against it leaves the other board with an option in both cases. If the town votes against it, the village can still vote to dissolve. If the
Mhm.
village votes against it, the town can vote to annex.
That's correct.
No, but what, as I understand it.
Only in
before-
special legislation.
I-
No,
No, that's
I
not
think-
special
I think, no, I think in the existing legislation, isn't in the existing legislation, the village government and the town government have to both agree to let the town outside the village vote on annexation?
You do, annexation does require the vote of both governing bodies before the people
can go vote.
You
But
wouldn't need the
only-
vote of both electors, but you would need the vote of both governing bodies.
So the town.
But the village could, on its own accord, choose to move to dissolution.
Right.
But
So-
not under a special bill that you're proposing for coterminous.
Well, under current law,
Right,
under current law,
so.
if the village wanted to say, okay, we'll show you and vote to dissolve, they could do that.
Right, but what we're talking about is introducing or asking to be introduced and enacted a special bill that allows for coterminous, okay? And both boards must vote on that, to
Mhm.
present the referendum,
And then
and
both
the
communities.
whole community gets to vote.
Correct.
Okay. If one board does not agree to
Mhm.
present, we cannot, at that moment, go to annexation or dissolution because we're functioning under the special bill that we had enacted. Stuart is saying, if one of the boards fails,
Mhm.
can there be a provision in this special act
Right.
that we're seeking where 20%
Mhm.
of the voters can force that
Yes.
board to act?
And that's
all.
Yes, no, I understand that. I understand that. And that's, if you choose to ask that to be added, I can run that by the governor's office and see if they're comfortable with that. And if they are comfortable with that and willing to support that, then that could be in the bill.
Well, on behalf of the village, I'm gonna move that we proceed to go with this seeking special home rule legislation for the formation of coterminous government with the proviso that trustee Glenn proposed, that either side by 20% petition. If the governor's office is not interested in that, that we then just pursue the special bill as it is. Yes? All right, you do it then.
Let's see if there's a second.
Well, it's a second, just on off, for discussion.
If we have one.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I'll,
you
I'll
said we
wait
didn't have
for
to vote
your.
on this, right?
Well,
You said we didn't really have to vote on this.
No, but I just need, I need a
Direction.
He
direction.
needs a
Change
direction.
direction.
well, I'll
So let's
second
just
it so
get to-
that we can discuss it.
Right.
And what I would like to do,
Can you just talk into the microphone?
What I would like to do is, since the council has asked our representatives to come up with language, to take a look at that language before we make our final choice. And then very quickly, I mean, I asked if this was possible because I think all the people want to look at everything that's possible. I mean, I didn't put it out there because I said necessarily I want to do that. I just want to be able to answer all questions, because as soon as we go out of here and don't ask that question, they'll ask us. So maybe if we get the language back from our legislators, this is what they suggest, and before they actually put it in, then we can have thought about it more and decide.
Can I suggest, just in the interest of time, that I have at the same time a conversation with the governor's office as to how comfortable they would feel about adding that language if you chose to add it at a later date. So if the bill comes back and you say, great, perfect, that's wonderful. If the language comes back and you say, you know what, we really do want that public petition provision in, I don't have to then start negotiating with the governor's
Yeah,
office.
the only, I think it would be good to have it in there, because I think that's protection for the public, but I don't feel strongly enough to put it in there if that's gonna keep it from happening.
Well,
That's
so
my
I hear
motion.
you.
I hear you.
So
Well, I
that's-
can tell
Yeah.
Sally, we don't have to do it as a motion, because she's just asking for direction, she's not asking
I
for vote.
think-
Sally, she's, okay, so, what was I gonna say? I think what she's asking for is the ability to go to the governor's office. They already said that they want this special legislation. They'll do anything they can to help get it through.
But we
Okay.
have to agree to the
I
special legislation.
know,
Well,
what
that
she's
you do
saying
formally in a
after,
home rule message when the time
she's
comes.
saying, in other words, she's saying, she's already spoken to the governor's office. They want to help us with this, okay? They want to do the special legislation. Langdon and Bonaci's office has already said, we will do anything we can to help you, not a problem. Work with me, Linda, to draft the legislation. I'm going to start drafting and I'll get back to you. Dr. Benjamin has had conversations with Lisa Bloom and Kales. All Linda's going to do now is go call back to Jim Malatras and say, okay, if we wanted to add in a provision for, you know, the public to have a say in this special legislation, is that problematic? And they could say yes or no, and she'll have a better idea. Then she could draft them to write it up, and it's going to come back to us anyway for us to vote.
Only a special say if one of the two
Right,
boards.
right,
Right.
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 But that way, we'll still get the bill back, or the
Right.
draft bill back, as it stands, as it's been requested now.
Right.
Right.
But I will know
Right.
whether we're beating our heads against the wall with the
Right.
governor's office.
That's what I
Right.
wanted.
Does that
Right.
sound good?
Yes.
You
Everyone
agree to,
comfortable
Brian?
with that?
That sounds appropriate.
Yep,
Okay.
we're good.
It's just, you know, you want to grease the wheels ahead of time this late in the session.
Okay,
No.
now,
I mean, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, yeah, I
And then I
just
think
had
Joe.
another question, just for clarification. So, special legislation comes back. It says that we have the ability to move forward toward a coterminus.
Mhm.
Now, we don't necessarily know, I mean, the coterminuses we've looked at are kind of vague one way or the other. So, I mean, will we have to, number one, we're gonna either just choose town or village, and it's not going to be, so like, let's say we get it back, two boards agree, the public votes. No, are we at that time voting just to go to coterminus, and there's another
No,
vote
they will
to
also,
do
they will be voting, the public, you vote on whether to
what it's gonna be?
send it, no, you vote, the municipalities, the boards,
Right,
vote on sending it to referendum.
okay.
Uh,
As a village or a town.
No,
Just as coterminus,
just as coterminous.
they accept,
They vote, the constituents vote on whether it will be a town or a village.
during that same referendum? So it's
Yes.
yes, and do you wanna be a town, yes, and do
Yeah.
you wanna be a village, or no? Okay,
Yeah,
and.
which is why it's very important along this process that you folks are clear on exactly what you'll get in each of those
Sure,
scenarios.
very
Okay.
interesting.
Well,
are we comfortable?
So the referendum ballot question is two questions?
No, it will be, do you wish to be the coterminus town village as a village? No, let me take this.
Operating
see, I think,
Operating principally as a village, yeah, there's not a
I thought-
yes/no, there's not a yes/no on whether it's gonna happen. The yes/no would be on whether it's gonna be, whether it's gonna run as a town or a village.
not to challenge the attorney.
Yeah,
okay?
no, all of a sudden now you've got me
I think
going.
not to challenge the attorney, but I think, okay, under the existing law, it's, under the
law,
existing
correct.
law, it's, the way it is now, we can, the two boards can agree to allow the town outside the village to vote to annex.
I'm sorry, you're right. No, I take it back. When, I've been looking at so many pieces today, and I'm getting confused. The way I drafted it, it would require
Right.
the approval of the citizenry, as well as them voting on what form it's gonna be in. So they
That
wouldn't
be
just,
one question or two?
I think we would have it would be on the same ballot, and they'd have to be, even if,
Okay, I think,
either there would be, I mean,
let me just finish my
Yeah.
thought for a second, and you
Yeah.
can tell me if you think I'm wrong. The way it is now, okay, if we didn't do anything, we just operated by what's on the books, okay? So we said, fine, we're willing as two boards to say, fine, let the town outside the village decide if they want to be annexed. Then once they decide yes, then the town outside the village and the village then decide, do we want to operate as a town or a village? That's the way it is now, okay,
Right.
without us doing anything. That's the process, okay? Do you understand that, Brian? You look-
So it'd be a full annexation,
Right now,
and do we wanna be a village or a town?
right now,
Does that make sense?
the way it is under law,
Yes.
okay, and I think that's 17A, well, it doesn't matter, I don't care what it
Right.
is. Right now, one of the options that's legal is for the two boards right now to say, okay, we're gonna let the town outside the village decide whether they wanna annex. They
Right.
go, yes, we're gonna annex. Then at that point, there's another vote.
Everybody would
where
vote
the
on
town, outside the village and the village, vote, do we want to be a town or a village?
Right.
Because we're asking for special legislation for Newports, we could, I believe, I think,
Yeah.
say to them, we want to draft legislation that allows us to have the ability to vote on whether we want to be a coterminous government operating primarily as a village or town. Then we would go through the process of understanding the benefits of a village, the benefits of a town, and then the two boards, with the help of the public, would potentially make a decision of what we're putting up for a vote.
Right.
A coterminous government operating as a village or a coterminous government operating as a town. But it's only one, you're giving them yes or no on
The two
this.
boards have to make the
Right, right.
determination.
I don't know that that's the way the legislation is going to come back. We'll have to see. I mean, the law right now.
And I understand the way law is right
And
now, but we're changing.
but remember, we're not trying to change process. And even the bill that we're correcting that's out there right now says the voters shall vote on whether to operate as a town or as a village. That's the Bonasek and Cahill bill that's out there right now. I do not know that the legislature and the governor's office is going to let us take that away from them, because that is under village law and under the way all the others have been done. The public votes on whether the municipality is run as a town or as a village.
Well, if that should be the case, okay, if it is.
Yeah.
And we should vet this out to see.
And when we had the conversation with Malatras, that's what he was saying.
Okay, so assuming that's the case, I mean, I personally don't have a problem with it in the sense that I think a lot of people are very confused. If town government's better, if village government's better, I think through this whole process, because it's gotten so complicated and convoluted in its own way, that there's a lot of people who are in the town outside the village who are saying, why do I want to be a village? People in the village might say, why do I want to be a town? I know I started to have my doubts about why do I want to be a village and operate under village government. Maybe town government is better, but talking to so many people as I've been working on this process, I keep hearing from all the experts within government that village government is a better form of government, that village government gives you more opportunities, you can have your districts, you can have more equitable expenses being paid by the right people.
No district, that's the town council.
But what I'm saying is, in a way, I think going through this process is a good process for the public, so the public understands, including us, what are the benefits of town government, what are the benefits of village government, and that's what a lot of people are saying to me, at least the town outside the village. Why do I want to be a village government? And so I think to be able to educate the public and ourselves to the benefits of each government so we can then make the right decision for where we want to go forward, no matter how long it takes us to make this decision, is a healthier conversation for the community, so there's no questions that aren't asked and understood. And I think we end up, if we bring forward a referendum, we're going as an educated community to make a decision.
I mean, the way it is now, this has the annexation language which has to
Right.
change, but it talks about in any village which after July 1st, 2012 annexes, and we're saying we're going to need to change that to say, or by other means becomes coterminous, there shall be submitted to the voters in such village at the next November general election. Then there's also a provision that says it goes to the town. A proposition as follows: shall the local government of blank operate principally as a village or principally as a town? So I do not expect they're going to want to take that vote away from
I would agree.
the residents.
Which, again, I think we all need to be educated, and we all need to make an educated decision on what's the best form of government. Now, again, people in Albany seem to all believe the village is a better form of government, so let's go through the process and convince ourselves and convince the public.
Well,
why
and
that's
that's why
better.
you anticipated having public
But-
hearings.
Right.
Instead of going further down the road, can we get the special act of legislation going?
Well, she's,
so we
yes,
can-
yes, yes.
Yeah, but that's
So-
what she needs.
Yes, no, she's really working on it,
Yeah.
and now she's gonna go back and just ask if they added the
But
extra
is
caveat.
your, Are you people in agreement? We are.
Mhm.
Okay.
I just have
One clarification here. Earlier on, I was under the impression that, and maybe it's because it's under the other part of the law that we're talking, that we studied this, and the two boards then decided to come up with, this is the plan. And
That's
then we
because
say,
you thought you were operating under
right,
17A.
yes or no to
Right.
this plan, and then the vote that goes out to the voters in both the municipalities is, this is the plan, yes or no.
And that's the way
we've been
17A would
thinking,
operate.
And so this is a bit different.
And that's the way
Oh, very
17A would operate. And that was the question to the governor's office, would you let us do this under 17A? And the answer came back, no.
But
I just
remember,
have
I'm
to
sorry.
bring a piece of history into this, which is the whole reason we went down this path was that we were told that it would be impossible to become a city. And that was
It
actually
would be
our
a big
first
hurdle to become a
choice.
city, yeah.
Well, I'm
Not
starting
impossible,
to
but a big
feel
hurdle.
now, you know, that there were all of these hidden pitfalls along the way, and I'm really sorry that we were diverted from the path of looking at a city.
I'm not, because I don't feel like paying for all of the state highways.
Well, we don't.
And all of
Kingston
and the paid
doesn't,
fire
but you know
department.
what? That's another urban myth.
No, it
Kingston-
isn't. You have the, you
Kingston
have the
does
email
not
on it.
pay for maintenance of all of the state roads in the city of Kingston. It's just one of those myths.
Well, according to other than you, it's not a myth.
Well, I sent you all the documentation about that.
And you got counter documentation from Peter Fairweather at the time that you
Well,
raised
no,
that,
I did
and
not.
it was not true.
I just think
I
one
want to
thing.
go back to being a city.
I think one thing that's interesting, and Linda spoke to it, and I find it very troubling that some could make a decision like right now after just being presented with this information, and that we know there's a lot of confusion, and anyone who leaves this table saying tonight that they do not still have some confusion in their mind on 17A of town law or GML and 17 of village law or home rule, you're not telling the truth to yourself, and you're in a delusional world.
Or
Linda said, or you're an attorney. Because that's the only choice.
Or maybe we've been doing this for months.
Well, no, you were just handing.
And some people have been more involved in the process.
You were
than others.
just handed information tonight you've
Okay,
never
but,
seen before.
I mean, if you look at all
but
the options,
if I
if
could
you look
just,
at all the options,
if I could just
you can
finish,
see,
if I could
you
just,
can see where one actually makes
If
a
I
lot of
could
sense for
just-
us to move forward. Well, I just don't appreciate the way you people at the table. So
Okay.
if you can just keep
I'm
it,
sorry,
if you can keep it
you are-
professional, that would be really great.
you and Linda can be the sole them ones that are in
Only
full
the
command
mayor
because
gets to talk.
I'm
because
just exactly. We don't have him here. Let's just keep it in a very positive way.
I simply
Would you
am. If
mind?
anyone can
Is that
say
okay?
that, so you can leave here saying you understand completely everything.
I just appreciate you not speaking.
I just asked you a question then. You can say you can
I
leave here.
can leave here saying I feel confident moving forward on this.
I didn't say that. I said you can say you're leaving here. You're completely
Well,
under
Jeff,
in
I'm no
command of this
attorney,
information.
but you know, I think I got the gist of it.
The gist, having the gist,
Yes.
and then having the idea that you can leave here and say, I am fully confident in all this
So maybe we
information.
can wait until we just understand
Right.
all of
I
state
agree.
law, and then we could we'll never move forward on anything.
Okay, good. I'm good with that. But
I know
Linda
you are.
said another no, you don't know that. Linda said, don't know.
Okay, you know what?
So what Linda did say, though, Linda said something very clear, though, which is where she said, I'm not trying to not have myself lose business here. We've all learned that you cannot use the monetary function for which to move forward. Monetarily, these have all been proved to be modest savings. That comes from a presentation that you gave. Also, that came from a presentation that CRG gave to this board.
CGR, yeah.
I apologize. CGR gave to this board.
Those-
The other part of the presentation, I'll say that most of the studies do not result in any type of merger or consolidation. There's many reasons for those too, if you go through and read them. So what we haven't sat here and said or discussed is, what is it? We're going to go spend a lot more money to chase after special legislation in a very short time frame. You had mentioned we have about 4 to 6 weeks. Probably would be a reasonable amount, which we would need to get together again and meet. So I myself am not sitting here, and I cannot say that I believe right now that we are sitting here with a vision for a community about why are we going to look to consolidate our governments. We don't sit here. Now, if the vision of the community is we want one government because we just want one government, that's great. But none of the reports and the consolidated committees, we have not sat and ever met as a town and a village board and simply stated, here is the vision of our community going forward. And the vision of our community is for one single government. That has not been stated by these boards. We have not gotten together as we are considered the two boards agreed in the very beginning, a year and a half ago, a year ago, whatever it was, that we would then be the final meeting of putting together a lot of studies, and those studies would then lead us with a vision. We've never decided that. So I guess I was just handed this tonight, so I have questions on this that I don't even know what my questions are. The other part is, I don't know where anyone, if someone could tell me what is the vision of this community about why we're consolidating these two governments, and if we don't consolidate, what can we do to cooperatively, which we've done successfully with many other departments already, that would then do all the same functions that we don't need to consolidate for.
Well, that is why I suggested, I think a couple of times this evening, that let's, if you are so inclined, get the special bill through, just so it's one more tool you have in your arsenal, and then you can sit and answer all those questions, and if the ultimate answer is, yeah, we do want to become coterminous, you've got the ability. Whereas if you don't get the bill now, and you spend the next month or two exploring, and you say, yeah, we do want to become coterminous, then my answer to you is going to be, see you next November, because you've lost a year. So that's why I'm suggesting, as just to clarify your statement about you're going to spend a whole bunch more money, part of my contract, which is a flat sum contract, involves me drafting the legislation and
I
giving
understand
any
that,
input
yeah.
there, so you're not spending any more money.
Well,
getting this bill
part
through.
of us budgeting the money on you, though, is assuming we're going to get money back from the state. If we do not go through with consolidating, then we will not get any money back. So potentially this money is being spent without getting any money. There is a, the gambler's fallacy is what you would be picturing here. And under the gambler's fallacy is if I bet on it this time, it will work. That is what we're looking at here right now.
I don't think that's quite accurate about the money. I think you put in for the grant, and it's a 50-50 grant. Should you go forward in the future, then you'll get, the municipality will get 40% back, meaning they'll only pay 10% altogether. But if you don't go forward, then you pay 50%, and the government's put up 50%. Is that correct? I think that's right.
That's under the new budget proposal by the governor.
Okay, so the two boards have been meeting for a long time.
Yep.
The two boards voted not unanimously, but in the majority, to continue to proceed looking at a coterminous government. We hired counsel and consultants to help us now try to say what would this government look to answer some of those questions of what are we looking at, what are we trying to create, and we're going to have these new consultants come in and help us get to that and create it together so we do know what we're talking about. Because you're right, we don't know what we're talking about, which is why we're bringing people in to help us now get to reality instead of just talking of more, whatever. So all we're doing right now is sort of saying that in order to continue on the road that we were doing to look at what a coterminous government would look like and get to that, we just now need the vehicle to allow us to do it if we should choose to want to, which we always thought we had until Linda came and presented to us and said, I think there's a wrinkle. So all we're doing, and at least right now, we seem to believe both our legislators and the governor's office are saying, yes, we want to help you get the wrinkle away because we want to see if you can do this, because we think this might be an option for other governments to proceed. So we will do what we can to help you to continue to have the conversations, and then at a certain point, you decide, do you want to put this up or not, and it fails or it doesn't. So what we're doing is going down we're continuing down the road we all agreed, that a majority of us agreed to, and now we're just trying to take the caveat away of stopping us from getting there, but we still have a lot of work to do, which is bringing in Kent and Linda to sit with the two boards to start to say, okay, now what does this government look like? And that's what we all really, I think, want to get to, including yourself, is what does it look like, and is it worthy of giving the voters the choice, or is it a bad idea, and should we start talking about shared services and other things, but we're never going to get to the alternative until we see if the sequel makes sense or doesn't make sense.
Well, those are two separate things. She's talking about doing so we can get there. So we need a mechanism.
She's just trying to take away the wrinkles.
I know, I understand that. But you combined a lot of pieces there. You threw a lot of things into a Cuisinart there and make nice, which isn't fair. What I'm saying is, what she wants to do is simply have it, a mechanism sitting there waiting for us. We may discover between, let's just say this is what, we have until June, basically, right? The legislator's out, session is out.
Session will be out first or second week of June.
So, and that's our drop dead is first, second week of June. That's all we have. After that, we would sit and then discuss what you combined with that, Susan. So she's just asking that we have something sitting there ready should we decide. And I don't believe it's the decision of this board, though, and this is where we would need CGR to come in, though, and help us guide. We must talk to a lot of different people, and I don't get the full. I get people that think consolidation is good because one must be better than two, and I talk to people that say no, consolidation is not. I don't want to lose the village. You know, we've had the town's been here for 300 and almost 50 years. The village has been here for several hundreds of years. So
No, about 100.
about 100, a little over 100, I thought.
The village is.
I know
much
we're 335, and
The
they're.
village is much younger.
Yes, we're 335, and I believe the village is on. So anyway, I think that's what we need to get is what is the, I don't know if anyone can sit here and say, I have, from our community, what is the vision of our community? Why are we doing this?
I understand that, but
Can I ask for
Sure.
a point of order?
Absolutely.
You can ask for
The
what you
point of
want.
order is that 4 village trustees voted to pursue this. We thought we had, when
For the
we
full
got
town.
the finance law amended, which was the critical part that everybody said was so critical, we had to have the $1 million, okay? We got it. Then what happened was the state of New York said, oh yeah, but guess what? We forgot to tell you the process to get to coterminous, and you can't do it under 17A or under village law. That's where we are, Jeff. But 4 people on the town board and 4 people on the village board said, we want to get there, and we want to present a referendum to the people. Okay? That's where we are. Now, you may disagree, and I know Jason disagrees, and that's fine, and I respect that. But you also have to respect the fact that there are 4 people on your board and 4 on our board who have a different
Okay,
view.
now just to point of clarity there, just so you can say so, did I vote for or against that? Did I vote for
I
or
don't
against
know
that?
because
Well, you
you-
said 4, so there's 5 people on our board.
But you're arguing.
But let's make it clear though, you're saying, okay, if you remember, I voted for to move ahead. That was with you all the way back, I believe, February, March.
thought
I
you
voted
did
for.
too, but now
So
you're
you're saying
saying-
for.
Okay.
I'm saying the same thing now that I was saying then, is simply, if we're going to move forward, and we're moving on completely different pieces then. We're working under the understanding of 17A. Absolutely. We are now being handed a completely different document,
No, no, no.
which changes the complete landscape of this
Jeff-
field, which is filled with apparently it's a minefield we're walking into here.
No, no, no.
And we need to guide through it. Now, we are going to need attorneys to guide us through it. All we're being asked for tonight, though, by Linda, is for us to then say, let's have a mechanism sitting there ready if we can get it through this session. I'm not debating that one bit.
Okay.
But what I am going to debate is, I don't know, once we get to that then, it's now also changing what we can build. What her legislation is going to propose is not going to be building what we pictured under 17A. It is not. Yes, you can.
I just want to say that I agree with you, Jeff, that we have not done a good job of explaining why our committee felt so strongly that consolidation under coterminous was a good idea. And I think it's because we've spent so much time saying, oh my God, this isn't going to work. Oh my God, that's not going to work. So many of the working premises that we had as a working study group have been ripped out from under us.
And nobody's asked us why we supported what we did.
Right, and so I mean, I know why I support consolidation. I want to have one master plan for our community. I want to have one Department of Public Works for our community, and I don't want to have to negotiate an MOU every year. I want to expand our tax base so that it is a town-wide tax base, and I do think ultimately that will have a positive impact on our taxes. But we have not, we've spent so much time saying, let's pursue this path, only to discover that there's a giant brick wall at the end of the path, that we have not actually had a chance to sit down and do a PowerPoint and say, here's why we think this is the best way for our community to come together. What I'm hoping is if we can get this new legislation passed, then we have CGR and Linda come and say, if you go down the primary village path, here are the benefits. Because a lot of the things that I sense are possible for us were you know, a vision that was given to us under a set of misunderstandings. And so I think that the basic foundation of them is all still pretty secure, but the thing that we have not given you or the residents of our community is the benefit of sitting down and hearing what the benefits of consolidation are. And I think if we can get this legislation through between Linda and CGR, we can present the benefits, and then the community will have the information they need to make an informed vote.
You said it better.
And I'd like to just add to that,
But Sally could.
I agree with Kitty, but I think our problem was how we, the committee, thought we were supposed to get there, okay? And how in reality we're gonna need to get there does not discount at all that we've never had the opportunity to tell you why, not the process. The process got fouled up, but why the committee came to the belief. And it wasn't just economic. There were lots of reasons. We had lots of discussions about the pros and cons of this. We never had the opportunity to share why we recommended what we recommended, philosophically, not monetarily. And I think we need to have that opportunity.
I think we did have that opportunity, but every joint meeting we had just kept turning into, okay, let's vote and get this train going. Like first there was a goal to try to, let's vote on it in May. Okay, now let's vote on it in November. And we were setting deadlines instead of just having the discussion of this is why it's good. So and I'll include myself, I think we failed. And I will include myself in that as being a member of this board. I think we failed. The single goal was constantly to say, we need to do this, and I need to vote on it in the first village election. No, okay, now we need to vote on it in the next general election in November. And I think that was our own, that was an error on our part, it was an error in strategy. And we should have been, instead, we should have been discussing why this is good, and we haven't done that.
But Jeff, we
Well, anyway, you know what, I think, you know what, I don't know, we can either continue to have this conversation, or we could try to just sort of wrap it up. You know, I mean, we're at where we're at, we've made a lot of mistakes, we've made a lot of progress, okay? We're not perfect, but we're trying the best that we can, okay? And we're all sitting here, night after night, coming to these meetings, putting in the time, sitting here for hours. We've gotten to the point that we're at. Now we're coming up with a solution of how to get to where we thought we might be going, and then yes, we have to put together a plan so we can all understand, you know, what we're trying to do. And, you know, Jeff, for better or for worse, you know, again, I came into this process with certain assumptions, and I started to have my doubts too. I mean, you've talked about it, okay? I've had my doubts throughout this whole process, and I've kept my mouth shut a lot because I haven't wanted to influence the fact that, you know, there were certain, you know, committees that did work and came forward with a recommendation. I'm looking forward to having this process with CGR leading us through what these different forms of government could look like, why something can work, why something can't work, that we can ask those meaty questions that we've all been chopping at the bit to get to. So it's time to sort of get the process out of the way and sit down and roll up our sleeves and do the meat and potatoes, figure out if this idea makes sense, present it to the community or not, and then just call it quits and then move on and decide what we're going to do. So I would really like to sort of bring this to a close at this point. If there's any more questions that we need to ask of Linda specific to process, that anybody wants to ask,
Look, we voted.
I don't think we don't have to vote. It's not a matter
No,
of
but
vote.
we also
I understand that.
gave
I'm just saying that I
direction. It's on
think,
your side that needs to give the direction.
Well, we didn't even finish the vote, but.
I don't think we don't, Linda, we don't,
I agree.
okay? It's just a matter of if there's consensus that at least to get the legislation going. We have right now our legislators and the governor saying, let us do what we need to do to help you take away the roadblocks so you continue down the path to try to come up with some form of government that you want to consider. That's all we're trying to do tonight, okay? So let's get that going because we have very little time.
Done.
And then we can come back and hopefully continue the conversations of what kinds of government do we want, what does it look like, or do we even want to do this? And then we'll just figure out what the town's going to do, what the village is going to do, and congratulations, we'll move forward and talk about more.
We're congratulating ourselves. We're moving
So
forward.
does anybody else have any questions that they'd like to ask? Is everybody okay? Joe, you have anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay, so with that,
All
can we
right.
sort of close this portion of the conversation?
Yes.
And the only thing I would ask Linda is if you
Sure.
were coming down here, I said, hey, if I can ask Linda.
Yeah.
I didn't,
No, you're saying sure. I wanted Linda to answer. That was
I
a
know,
question for
no,
Linda.
I was trying to close.
Linda, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So I don't need, let Susan's talking for you.
I don't want to.
She has a tendency to do that, so doesn't surprise me.
Jeff, I was just trying to close it up and then
if
you
you're
wanted to
going
ask me
to-
something and I'm moving back so you can.
If you're going to be coming
Please.
down to our community for any meetings with any elected officials, could you please make sure everyone on every board is notified of that?
No, Jeff, that is not her fault.
I'm not making fault. I just made a request.
No,
I
no,
didn't
no.
make
Every
an
meeting from this
accusation.
point on is in the public.
Well, no,
The only
I
reason
think
why-
any
the only-
time-
The last meeting, Jeff, was really for Linda to meet with Jerry to explain the concerns to Jerry of what she found out, to get Jerry's history, okay? And the only reason the rest of the board wasn't invited is because then it would have had to be an open meeting, and we would have noticed it, and we would have had it been an open meeting, and because she found this information out and was really concerned what she found out from the Department of State, I said to her, please share this with Jerry. He's got history that I don't have. He was really involved. Talk to him, let him know, let him answer, and then you two figure out how to proceed. And Kitty asked, can we do this where the whole board comes? I said, Kitty, we can't because it's an open meeting. We have to notice it. We don't have time. Let her talk to Jerry. There's concerns. The clock is ticking. And that's what happened. She came down to go meet with Jerry. That was the purpose of that night.
You were present at that meeting, though?
Yes, I was, because I
Okay.
facilitated the meeting.
Okay.
So all I'm just
So,
saying is from this
all
moment
I'm-
on, everything is yes, it will happen that way.
Okay, all I'm asking is if you're coming down to meet with any officials that are in this community, whether it's an open meeting or not, would you have a problem making sure both boards are notified?
No, I can either
Even if it's with an
get,
individual, if you decide to come down and have coffee, Sally, you can throw your glasses down, whatever, it needs to be an open process.
We
Okay?
all agree.
Well, no, you don't. So I think if it
chances
comes
are
down,
if I
if you
meet
come
with
down to meet,
legislative
yes.
people, that will be an
If you come
all-
down and have coffee with me, would you can we make sure that everyone is notified that you are coming down to have coffee with Councilman Logan?
Can we designate someone on each board that I can notify who will pass it on
Well,
to the
I-
boards, or do you want me emailing every member of the board? I mean, I can do
Every
whatever.
meeting,
the
every
clerk
meeting
would be
every meeting we're gonna have is an open meeting with
I think
you
the-
here, and you're not gonna be coming down to
The
meet with any
clerks.
one particular board member at this point, because it costs too much
Well,
money for you to come down.
I don't know that, though. I just simply want to
I
make sure
think
that all the meetings are,
appropriate protocol is for the two clerks to be notified
That would
of
be-
what they
yes.
choose to do.
so if you can notify all the clerks if you're coming down to meet or having any meetings with you, the board should be notified.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm asking. I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Okay, since we're gonna drive you back to where you are, if you don't mind, just wait a few seconds,
Sure.
just to do one real quick thing. The only other thing that we had to do was, because it's just Chris for you, we had a bid that the town board accepted, but it's really appropriate since the village already authorized the money. They authorized enough money, they authorized $30,000, and our bid was $60,000, right? So we don't really need them to come up with more money, which is our concern last time, was we didn't know.
We do need to see and
But they
approve.
should probably want to approve the bid, so I just
The
want you to
bids.
come up and just give them a,
Policy was
you know,
followed, right?
Yep.
just give them a quick thing about the.
That's in the next budget, you don't understand, right?
No, I'm just saying that
No,
what.
my point is,
The money.
What happened
The
was-
money is there, but the two boards must accept the bids because the understanding is that the town operates it, but capital improvements are a joint venture. If it's a joint venture, then both sides need to
Right.
approve
That's what we're
bids.
doing.
So
That's
if we
why-
can look at the
Yes,
bids,
that's why
and
Chris
we'll
is-
approve them
that's why
at
it's
our
on the
next
agenda.
meeting.
Actually,
We need to do it
no, but if
really
you want the
fast.
pool,
I
he
mean,
has to,
it won't open.
if the
if
pool's
you
not gonna
wait.
open because it takes.
Then you really have to get material to
No,
us.
Chris is here. Chris is here. Chris is here to show you the bid. You already authorized the money. We did
Yeah,
open
but
the.
you
We
voted
got
to
this on
approve the
Thursday.
bids,
Because
and
we
we
got
have.
This on Thursday, Sally.
We
I
just
mean,
got it too,
you
but
can
we just got it
delay as long
because,
as you
we
want,
just
but-
got it because the problem is, in order to, in order to get this piece of equipment built, it's gonna take a long time. We already might not be able to open the pool in time. So we're just trying to facilitate getting this done so the pool can open.
The bids came in on Thursday?
The
Chris,
bids-
do you have a
can
set of
explain
bid
it.
documents
Yeah,
for the
he's gonna-
village?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a set of bid documents for the village?
I have mine that I carry with me. I can send you a copy.
Can you show it to them tonight?
Yeah,
Go and
the
talk to
clerk
them?
and the
Explain, though,
treasurer need to
explain.
have it.
Right.
The top,
Has your committee reviewed this?
the top copy is
He's saying he has an office.
kind of a revision
Chris,
of the
just
bid.
take the
Here,
microphone. Can you guys just
Maybe
show
I can
us
help.
what they can?
You've exceeded that.
Well, as I recall the history of things, there was gonna be some issues with Moriello Park, so we had two from each board meet last year to work on things. We worked them out, brought them out to the boards, and they approved them. And then there's supposedly another list of issues for this year, and we're gonna do the same thing. But that wasn't presented to us, so we haven't met on that yet. We also heard that when we're preparing our budget, that it looked like our share of certain capital expenses would be, I'll use the figure 30,000 out of 60, something close to that. And in the budget process for the village, for the budget that starts June 1, we took that into what the town said into account, and that's in the budget. But beyond that, I don't think we have any particulars on it until now. So it's not that we're trying to drag our feet. What we were asked to do, we did, and so that's where we are.
Okay,
I mean,
so
so that's the history of it up to this point.
I'm just a little perplexed. So you're telling me that the need to get this new pump, you guys never knew that there was a need for a pump in order for the village to open, and for the pool to open?
I don't recall it being, when this was presented to us, that there were any deadlines with it. Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean,
And I'm not,
for funds for us, I mean, for funds for us, we're gonna be using recreation funds, so that's where we're getting our funds from, and the village has a recreation fee also, so I don't know if you could take the funds out of
and
that.
the other question is if it's, it's set up in the budget to start June 1, so I don't know if, and the budget's been done and the money's been reallocated, so I don't know the answer to that. The
Right.
treasurer would have to answer, but we're trying in good faith to work together to do this, so
I guess-
I'm not opposed to any of this, but this is just kind of,
I'm just a little
Right.
perplexed because I just thought that I'm sorry, and maybe I'm just really stupider than I thought I was, but I thought the fact that the pump is a problem, that we weren't going to be able to open the pool because of the pump if we didn't move it from confined space and upstairs and all these other things, that was understood by both boards, and we knew we had this problem and we were trying to solve this problem, and that's why we went out to bid, and
But the bid specs and the approval of the bid are the joint boards to do.
I know, I understand that, but I'm getting the
that's
sense
what
that right
I'm
now,
saying.
I'm getting the sense, Sally, right now, that what I'm being told is that the village board had no clue that we were even going out for a bid for the pump. That's what I'm hearing.
I don't think we knew the specifics of it. We knew the number, and you said these are the things on the list, but I didn't have, now maybe
No, it's true, we didn't know the money.
it might be my ignorance that we needed this in 2 weeks, and if that was the case, then the board could have voted on this year's money instead of next year's money. So
I don't think it was
I
your-
didn't have that in my head that way, but maybe I just didn't understand it, but I mean, there's no attempt to delay anything, it's just
No, it's
As I
not.
understood up to this moment. that's
It's
all.
not your ignorance at all, and not only did we not have deadlines when we discussed it with you, we did not have the funds, and as Chris can answer now, it turned into be, I don't know if I want to use the word substantially more? Quite a bit more? We can just go with quite a bit more.
Quite a bit more.
Quite a
We'll
bit
go
more,
quite
not
a bit.
substantially more, quite a bit more than we had all thought it was going to be. So no, there was no ignorance on your part at all, or on the village board. We did discuss it, but we did not know the deadlines of it when we discussed it, and we certainly did not know the expense. We actually thought the expense, Chris, hold me true here, we thought the total was going to be in the mid-20s, I thought.
When you and I met with the
No,
person
no,
from
when we
Streamline, it
first
was
met.
it was in the 20s till he came back because he wasn't thinking of prevailing wage.
Right. It was below 30. It was a very doable number. It was going to be 10 or 15,000 each. It was a very, very
In
doable number.
fairness to Chris.
And we just found this out Thursday.
That's,
Yeah.
in fairness to Chris, we knew that each side,
Yeah.
the outside would be 30,000 each. We knew that from Chris. Okay, we budgeted 15 new money because we have 15 in there already.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. We have the $30,000 as we were asked to do for the capital improvements. But normally, when two parties are involved in bidding, they both get to look at the bid specs and they get to vote on awarding the bids. That's all we're saying. That did not happen.
I think you're absolutely correct.
And that's why it was put on the agenda tonight, because Chris just got the bids. He brought it to the town board. Okay, we acted on it because of the concern of the timing, knowing that we had to act in order for him to be able to start to order this. And that's why when we were meeting, we said, let's put this on the agenda so you guys could learn, do the same thing that we were given the information Thursday. You're here tonight, and that's why it's on the agenda, so Chris can tell you what's going on, so you guys.
It appears on the agenda as a phrase. No bid documents came
I'm sorry
with
about
the
that.
agenda.
Okay, I'm
is
sorry
all
about.
we're saying.
I'm sorry about that.
Additionally, if you guys voted this on Thursday at the last meeting, right?
Yes.
So you could have sent them to the treasurer's office or to the clerk's office, and we would have had all this information.
We wanted-
Now we're receiving them here at the table, and it makes it much harder to.
You know what?
I
It
agree.
happened Thursday night. We were doing stuff. I'm sorry that I didn't think to do that. All I thought about was we're going to meet with you guys. Chris can talk to you about it because it seems to be such an emergency. I'm sorry if we screwed up.
No, I do. We did.
Okay.
I agree. No, I agree. I absolutely agree. If you guys want to wait to act on it, I mean, we can.
But we
You
just
have
won't be able to open the
further
pool. It's fine. It's just the problem.
But Susan, it isn't fine to say, do this or we
No,
can't
no,
open the pool.
Sally, the
That's
point, Sally,
valid.
Sally.
Instead of arguing about how the degree to which we screwed up, which is infinite, we accept that. Let's just start from the fact that this is the low bid, and our bad for not opening them all in front of you. I don't know, calling a different special meeting.
Well, they didn't open in
and
front of
doing
us
that.
either, the clerk opened.
But this is the low bid. We are under a.
Okay, how about giving the village board 2 minutes
Absolutely.
of
Go for
quiet,
it.
and we'll read it quickly.
Go for it.
And are we going to approve minutes, or do we want to put that off? And we can. It's totally to everyone.
Well, it's still a joint meeting.
Yeah, no, it's still, no, approved minutes for the joint meeting. We were going to,
Yeah.
we were going to do that, right?
No, it's for us, it's next year's money.
Joe wants to
right,
know if
Chris?
he can leave.
Me.
Well, I'm just thinking.
It's our
He doesn't
June
know.
1st budget, it's their
I believe so.
We have
January.
to, I'm going to drive her to where
It's
she's
still this
staying.
year's budget for us.
Linda's staying in
The first
Newport, so
two
I'm just going to
pages are
drive
the
her to
actual
where she's
bid.
going,
The
so she
rest
doesn't
is
have to
just
walk.
specifications.
Where is
She's
she
staying,
staying?
it's not for.
Susan,
Okay,
you
but-
do understand it's next
Joe
year's
could cover
budget
it
for us, not this year's budget.
It doesn't matter what your, do we have, when you, is it okay if Chris just explains what the problem is, so you just understand?
First of all, I was never asked about where the money's coming from, just that they had it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Joe's
So
gonna take-
I
Joe's
can
gonna
explain
take
the
off.
problem
Good
with
night,
the
Joe.
pool. The reason that they're saying that it's not going to open is because we have a
Thank you very
confined.
much for coming tonight. It was very nice to meet you.
See you all soon.
Good to see you.
It's okay.
We'll see you lots more.
is we have a confined space problem, a regulated confined space problem. What that means
Right.
is we have to wear air packs to go down and clean up.
Yeah,
blah, blah,
we-
blah, blah, you know.
we all know about those,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So all this is to move the pumps up to grade
Right.
level,
No,
repipe,
not-
replace. Oh, no, I'm just giving you a quick,
Okay, that-
so you
we
understand what
understand
the
the
bid is.
background, we
Okay.
understand there's a problem with the pump, we understand all of that. What I'm saying to you is, you have awarded the bid, okay, in your current budget. We awarded the bid, or will be awarding the bid,
Allocated the funds.
2000.
in our 2013-14 budget. Is that a problem?
It's not a problem with me, but I'm just doing the work.
Did you hear the
I'm a
question?
plumber in this job, you
No,
know?
I didn't, but it's okay. Jeff and Kitty are here, so they can.
You're the mechanic.
I'm the mechanic, someone else is the accountant.
But it's not coming out of our current budget. It's coming
It's not
out
coming out of your
Yeah,
current,
it's coming out
it's
of
coming out of
Award the
reserve
bid
fund.
No,
out
no,
of
neither.
the
It's the,
2013-14 budget.
Parker.
Yeah.
No, not even Parkland Fund. It's called Recreation Fund. It's the fees that we collect from people, $5,000 for when
Right,
you
when you
make a
develop.
tip.
This is not.
Exactly. And I know your fee is a lot
You
less,
are
so
awarding
but for
the
good
bid.
reason.
We budgeted the money specifically
Right.
for this.
So we
project,
don't, so to speak, we don't need to budget it.
It's not
even,
coming
it's a
out of
fund.
our
so
budget, it's coming out of our Parkland.
It's coming out of
Recreation.
our 2013-14 budget, and the question becomes,
Can we authorize
can
this
we
before-
authorize a bid proposal prior to the beginning of our
Why would you
2013-14?
take it out of your budget instead of your Parkland Recreation fees? Why would you not take it out of your Parkland Recreation fees, which you can do?
Because, Kitty, we were asked to budget it in
Well-
our capital Moriella Pool Fund, and that's where it is.
But then there also might be another issue about,
Where the rec fees are going, or are they already
Spoken
accounted
for?
For example, we're doing something at Hasbrook Park with a grant, and we have to put up so much of our money and have it available, so maybe there isn't money in the rec fund, but that's not where it was put anyway, it was put under this capital.
Because it's a capital
Category.
project for us, it's not an operating fund for us. So the question then becomes, why don't we just move the resolution?
Well, the thing
and
is,
get
well,
smacked
actually,
for it?
but we wouldn't be start receiving, well, you have an attorney next to you, luckily.
He's the
Well,
one
what-
that raised the question.
I think
the person that
the
you
bills
really need
won't-
is the treasurer
Right.
here.
The
That's-
bills
that's
won't be
question.
coming until
That's true.
June anyway. We won't be getting, we'll probably be getting some bills in,
Right, you can send
May.
the first bills to us.
we won't be getting most of the bill. We will be getting more substantial bills will
So, I
be
mean-
in June, but I do not know the answer to you. Stuart would have to answer, is it legal though to sign a contract that you don't?
Why don't we,
You'd have to answer that, Stuart.
This
Well,
is
and
your
all
low
this-
bid.
there's also the question is, we have this board, in a month there'll be a different board, and it's their budget that we're talking about. So
It
I don't
is-
know what the issues are.
no, it
there.
is our budget, we adopted it.
They can't go
If
on.
they implement it, I would suggest that we resolve to award the bid to Norboda Construction Inc. with the understanding that one-half of the $63,300
300.
will be paid by the village out of its 2013-14 budget. Is there a second?
I'll second it, but I also think that you may want to put, contingent upon the treasurer seeing that whatever the procedures are.
Yes.
Are,
That they were
Follow.
followed properly?
Right,
Right.
because,
Okay.
I mean, we did have a problem in the past with,
Hmm?
we had problems in the past with different procurement policies.
Yeah, I mean, did you get that qualification, Roseanne? That this is contingent upon the approval of the process by the village treasurer. We have a second?
The second-
I second.
Okay,
And I'll accept that.
okay. Any more
Our amendment to
discussion?
that.
Brian, what do you think?
I think if you two feel it's acceptable, then I would do it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Motion for the village to approve the minutes of February 28th and
I have.
April 1st.
I have
March.
some,
March
amendments.
18th.
Are we doing the
can't
minutes?
do the April ones because Jeff was not here. But we
Okay.
can do those 2 sets of minutes. So is there a motion to approve in the village?
Well, you made the motion.
Yeah, okay, good. All in favor?
I'll
Which
say
me-
that I did
which
give my
minutes?
I was
comments
gonna
on
say
these already.
qualified by the amendments.
I did provide those,
Okay,
and,
okay.
I mean, they were,
Would we do both?
So,
Okay.
accept that friendly
Yeah,
amendment.
we'll do that.
Okay,
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Good, we're done.
Okay, which ones did you just do?
These
Just
are
the first
some
2
other
sets, because
options that
Jeff wasn't here for
looking
April.
But I have
From
some
the
changes to
circle
do.
part down on
I
the
have
second
some
page.
very important changes.
Just the first
You
two?
can make them on your side.
Okay.
We
Okay.
approve.
did-
Can we adjourn and go home and you guys can continue?
Additional
You did February
possibilities
28th and April 1st?
No,
outs-
March
Outside
18th.
the
Yeah.
Oh.
project.
You didn't do.
February 28th and March 18th,
Okay.
I've already started on the
Okay.
as
last one.
amended by Stuart.
Okay, let me just see if I have, I mean, I have
So
an
we're
amendment
doing
on the
what we can
28th.
to reduce,
My amendment on the
That by-
28th is
Oh,
on
okay,
the-
Mark.
page
Yeah.
3.
That's great.
Just where you say, in approval of joint minutes, Zimmer voted no because she didn't have a change to read them, it's just a chance to read them.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And then just down where it says agenda, town business agenda, supervisor read aloud the following press release, just where it says controller, in both places where it says controller, just put Ulster County Controller versus the state controller, just for clarity. And that's my only changes on that. And on the 18th, I have no changes, so I don't know about you, Kitty.
Roseanne, you understand that our approval is
We're doing
only
the
on the
18th,
joint
28th,
board
and the
meetings,
18th,
we
which
have
was-
nothing to do with the
No, he
town.
wasn't, Jeff wasn't
Yes,
here
I
on the
was.
18th.
Yep.
And
I was here on
so
this
you should
one, and I was here on the
doing
28th.
town board
Says
tonight
absent
is
on
No,
joint
March
board
18th,
meeting.
I was absent, I apologize. No,
Right, so
March
then-
18th, I was not.
Unless Roseanne, I want you to do it.
28th, I was here.
I'm
Are we
gonna do
doing
most of the
February
electric.
28th?
so that I
I
don't-
think we
February
can only do the
28th, I was
28th,
here.
because, well, we can only do
You
the
had a
28th.
separate meeting, though.
No, the 28th is fine, because all of us
Oh.
are here.
I was
Oh,
not
but
here.
you
Problem
did
is
have
the
separate.
Have you just, did you make any changes to
It is,
February
it's
28th?
the 35.
Are we starting with February 28th?
Yeah, I made, the only changes I made to 28th was a spelling mistake,
We'll do what we can.
a grammar, and then I'm just
Well,
asking you to put
maybe
Ulster
we'll
County in
just
front of
add
controller
it.
versus state, just for clarity. So
Alright,
that's all I
so
did on.
page 2,
You're on the 28th, right?
on 28th.
Okay, yes.
Councilwoman Brown submitted some questions
Like copies of
to
one, we had
Supervisor
original
Zimmer
pages and
to
everything, I'll
forward
send them
to
over.
Kyle.
Would you mind?
Okay.
Great. Just like send
All right.
them to the
I wasn't
clerk.
involved in that part.
And then under the
Well, I
minutes and
was.
sustainable plan,
That's all we've asked for.
I have a lot to add to that. I'll
I
read
think
it.
you, I think you sent them to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
but they weren't in the ones I got back.
Listen, there's something.
They-
They're not in, it's not the one
They're
that we.
just a
All
draft.
right.
You
You're
sent
right.
me,
He only
Oh, but she's
wanted
just saying if we're approving it
30,000.
tonight, she wants it added to the minutes.
right, she already sent me those, what she wanted in there.
But what she's saying is that they're not in the copy we have, so we
Because those went out before she sent me what she
Okay.
wants
You
in
have-
there.
Do you have that
Okay,
bid?
so in other words, if we approve it, we're
I
gonna
don't-
approve it with that in it.
I'll send it to
You had it.
Has that in it?
I just handed back.
Say that again?
Oh, there
She
it
just
is.
wants to know that the ones that we're gonna
I'll send the
approve
original.
have that in it.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
send
gonna
you
add what she
overnight.
wants.
Okay.
and
To
then
the
I'll
clerk
send
and to
them
the
out.
treasurer.
Okay,
Okay, so that's, and about the minutes
No,
and
just the minutes.
sustainability plan?
Yes.
That's funny, okay.
and the
So
18th
that's
week,
28.
and the 18th
Yes,
we
you
can't
can.
vote on because
All right, rescind it and
it's
then
only me
award
and
the
you.
bid not
It's
to
only me and
exceed
Kitty. Jeff
30,000.
couldn't get vote because he wasn't here.
That's all we have in the budget. Now, that can be adjusted.
And that's it
We can't
for
Mhm.
do that without doing something else.
And I'm fairly sure I'll bring this in under budget,
March.
so,
And April
under the 6th, so.
Yeah, but his
On
point is we
March
can't exceed
Sally,
the budget.
Sally,
No, no, no.
you guys can vote on all of them. It's just the town board is gonna have to vote.
Right, well, the village can vote on the April meetings.
Yeah, you can, because we can't vote on any of the ones that Jeff was absent.
Right,
for.
and that's April 1st and April 8th.
No, he also wasn't here on the March, whatever one you
I
did.
thought he was here on the 18th.
No, he wasn't.
Oh, he
He
wasn't
wasn't.
there.
He wasn't. So why don't you vote on the other two, because whatever changes we
They
have to
already
make.
voted. They're-
On the,
No,
on,
we can do the 18th, we
On
can
the
do the
first.
April ones.
yeah, do the April ones too, because we're gonna have to,
Okay.
We're gonna have to, when he gets back, we're gonna have to rescind
gonna-
that motion and then pass the motion for not to exceed
$30,000,
$30,000 for
'cause
now,
that's what
because
we
that's all we have in
budgeted.
our budget. Then they can fool around and find the rest of it if they have to,
Okay.
which is 15 or 1600 bucks.
by Linda.
But we need to
Oh,
get
Want to give
okay.
it to,
Third
give it
vote.
to Nancy, or do you want us to send it through the mail or what?
Do you have it on email?
No, we can scan it tomorrow and email it.
Yeah, and send it to the clerk,
Mhm.
and send it to the treasurer, and I'll keep this for the board. Okay.
Okay, so
So Brian,
can't do
we
the
We can't do the 18th or the 1st or the...
Stuart moved to rescind, I seconded, you're in favor. Yes?
How do you know?
Well, that's what I'm asking. And then we're gonna do the motion not to exceed 30,000. I don't have any mint cookies to bribe you
That's a
with.
good point. Yeah, I'm in
Okay.
favor of that. I'll vote aye.
And now, are you moving to not to exceed?
Yeah.
Yes, so
Somehow it's just,
are you, okay, tuned in here? So the motion's gonna be the same motion, but it'll be not to exceed $30,000. Our share will be not to exceed $30,000, because that's all we have in the budget presently, and we'll have to deal with that.
Okay.
Second? You
Yes.
second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Now,
Now, can you...
are we prepared to vote on the minutes of April 1st and 8th? I didn't have any corrections.
I got your
I gave-
corrections.
Oh, and, okay, so I'm gonna move, the village approve the minutes of April 1st and the 8th as corrected.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're done.
Okay.
You got
Okay.
our approval.
So then,
We don't have to play games with you anymore.
okay. No, would you be able to tomorrow, I gave you a copy, right?
No.
Oh, I didn't give it, okay. This is a copy of the executed contract with Linda.
Okay.
Would you be able to scan that tomorrow and send it to the village clerk and the
And
village
to the treasurer.
And the treasurer?
Sure.
And to Ariana. Do you guys want copies of this?
Of course I would like
I will
Okay.
send it to everybody.
Copies to everybody,
Sure.
copies all around.
Okay, thanks.
On me.
including the mayor, please.
Before,
Yes.
before,
So the
before we adjourn...
Mayor, West,
we have to do
trustee,
the one.
Vasco,
Who?
treasurer.
I'm sending it
Joint
to
meeting.
everybody.
Yeah, that's easy.
Sending it to everybody.
Before we adjourn the town village portion, for the town to do one quick thing, I just want to, even though I know we're going to see you again, before you guys leave the board, but I just really want to comment about what a pleasure it's been to work with the two of you, and how much of a loss it's going to be for the town board to lose the two of you on the village board. And I just want to share my appreciation for both of you and for the time we've spent together.
It's very sweet.
Thank you.
And I mean it from the bottom of my heart.
And if
Well, I
she's
have
gonna
to add
miss
to
you,
that.
I'm really gonna.
That when Stuart was elected, I said, oh goody, that's
All
gonna
right,
be great.
so
When
may
Brian
we
was
adjourn?
elected, I said, are you kidding me? I said, this kid just waltzes into town, wins by a couple votes, couldn't care less about the village, and you have so changed my mind. I have just been so impressed by the hard work and the way you put your shoulder to the wheel. So we are really going to miss both of you.
And I will agree with Kitty. Susan's only had the 1 year so far, and working with both of you, and we went from completely not talking to the village board. Well, not for a while. We did talk to them, just no one ever responded. Yeah, we talked, but no one ever talked back to us. So it wasn't that much fun. And although we may not have always appreciated what we heard back, you guys always got back to us. And like I said, I wish whatever, Stuart, I hope you go and enjoy your retirement. And Brian, I know there's no way you're going to retire, because I can't retire until I'm about 90, and so you'll be about 130 by the time you can.
Yeah.
But whatever you're going to do, I'm sure you will do more than fine in it, because we have come so much farther. And again, we didn't communicate, and Sally knows that we never communicated at all. And so at least we're communicating, and that was key. And you two were definitely very, very instrumental in it.
Actually, I'm not retiring, I'm going back to work.
Actually, that is.
Going back
You're going back to the real work.
The sad part is you're not returning, you're actually going back to actually get billable hours.
Right, exactly.
But, we will see you again, but I do
When?
hope you both, Brian, hope you stay involved somehow in government around here. I don't know what your plans are, but I hope you stay somehow involved in government, because,
He's going to stay
That's
long
good.
in government, but it just might be in Long Island or New York City.
well, that's good. You're running for mayor?
Well, if Anthony doesn't decide, maybe I'll...
What was your conclusion on the fire contract? You're gonna approve
We're
the
going to do it
first
May
meeting in
16th.
May?
Yeah, May 16th.
Okay.
I had already told both
First
the boys
meeting
we
in
were going to
May.
do that and
Anything
stuff.
else for us?
And by the way, if you have any questions about the fire contract, Kevin was there, but I'm happy to
Yeah.
answer them. I think there's several new wrinkles this year, because the fire company's asking for the general municipal law 209D, which they're entitled to, but they haven't before, and we have a different way of looking at the fire safety reserve, and certain things that were coming over from the town are deleted, so stay in the town, so it is a bit different, so if you have any questions.
And just, so you know, we did review it with Kevin here. Gene does have some questions, so we may take you up on that offer and have
Sure.
Gene get hold directly of you, and maybe we can get, she can do it via phone or through some email. Yep.
It's my goal that during this 2 years that we will have one thing that's passed between the two of us on time.
No, I promise.
So
Well, like I said,
I'm hoping
I said, no,
I don't know
we
until it's over.
have it, we have it.
We have passed it, as Jeff
Yeah.
knows. and
Yes,
he's
I
done
know,
the
I
It's
know.
review
fine,
with us.
and we were prepared to,
We
we
would.
were prepared to pass it the other
No, I
night. But
understand.
then I realized because of, Gina's been ill, and Gina's still ill,
I hope
and,
she's all right.
hopefully knock wood, she should, she
She's out of
should,
the hospital.
she's out of the hospital and she's home, but she can't get out of bed right now, so.
And we don't want her at meetings either if
Right.
she wanted to, so
Right.
she needs to stay in rest. So
Right.
we
But
may
she
have her
would-
contact you just to get a few
But-
things,
But
but
it was
fine.
just because
She
when we
knows
were
a lot
going through,
about it.
because
I'm
we were
happy
going through the
to
thing, Gene had questions, and I realized while we were talking that all of a sudden it occurred to me this wasn't fair to Gene,
Right.
and, could we just hold off until Gene came, and so that's the only reason
Yeah.
we really did it.
So we will
it's
get in
on
on
May
time.
16th,
No,
and,
Okay.
but,
yeah, I'll ask,
Paul,
yes,
we will.
absolutely.
Everyone else
Absolutely.
knows.
All right.
anyway.
We're
Good
gonna,
night. You're free to go.
Okay.
You can adjourn your part of the meeting.
yeah, we're gonna adjourn.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
A second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good pie.
Okay.
So are we still
Yeah, well, we need to
open, or
adjourn,
do
well, we need
we-
to adjourn the joint meeting, or can we just keep going?
No, we can keep
You
going.
keep
We didn't
going.
adjourn our
Yes,
portion of the
okay.
meeting.
How long are you guys gonna
5
be?
minutes.
5
minutes.
5
2 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I make a motion that.
I'll go be a sinner against Jeff's advice and wisdom.
As soon as
Yeah.
I knew it.
we receive the $500 check from Wildcat Epic, that their
Thank you, thank
application
you.
for an event on May 11th be immediately approved.
Jeff, did you talk?
I did discuss it with, I asked the gentleman Gunther not to wait because he would be here and he had other things to do, so I will call him tomorrow. Their application, I don't know when they received it, but I see they just faxed it in on April 30th, which I believe is today.
That's, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they did contact
And
us.
it's
a while
missing,
ago,
and
but
it's
they-
missing one of the pages, so let me talk to Gunther and let him know I do believe we collected fees from them. I would like,
I
it's gonna be
hope so.
very difficult to look back, unfortunately. And I am not trying to point blame to anyone. I do remember them coming before us. You remember?
In the memo section this time, it should say Wildcat Epic.
Right.
So we can.
So
track
I just
things.
think it's, I mean, I can work with Carol, potentially we could find it. I leave my hopes very low that we could find from last year. I don't think, I know, no, I'm with you. I think some things, and I remember approving it with Tony, and I think,
I don't know what happened with it last year. I
Yeah.
don't remember it coming here.
I don't remember it ever coming here. I mean, I remember them
and that's
talking
one of,
about
they
it.
never came here, maybe it was the year
Is it the bike
before?
race?
Yeah.
Was it the year before they came
We
before?
have so many.
It might have been the year
of them. I
before. It
can't
wasn't
remember
last
which
year
one.
because
It was Linda
I don't remember.
they weren't here last year.
You know what, they
He
weren't
says
here
he
last year.
was.
See, the last year I remember approving it was with Tony. That's
they
the
weren't.
last year I remember approving it. I would have the file at my home. I know I have it at home, the Wildcat Expo file.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they did it last year, did
Yeah,
they?
they did it
They
last
did it
year.
last
because I
year.
lent them 50 cones.
Yeah,
But
because
they didn't come to the town board for approval.
we'd have to go back. The minutes would show that. I don't.
No, you don't remember it, I don't
I
remember it.
don't
I mean, I
remember.
remember it.
But if you did
Maybe-
it, it would be in the minutes.
I'm gonna.
I mean, I could go back, I mean, we have all the minutes
I
in the
know,
book,
but I'm
you know,
gonna
now,
bet
so.
they did not come. Well, we have to search through a few months. I don't want to do it now. So I will second Kitty's motion, as long as we're in discussion. And just, I guess, the end of discussion is, I will, whatever we decide tonight, I will contact myself, Gunter, tomorrow afternoon. I'll come out here and I'll go into the files. You're absolutely right. The last time I remember approving it was 2 years ago, sitting here. Remember that, Kitty? I do remember him coming here 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
I do remember that we charged a fee. But I don't know if
Well,
they
I
may
mean,
have
it's our
never,
policy.
they may have never come before us last year.
Yes, all I know is what Carol said to me today was that, and I really don't want to be
No,
passing on misinformation, but I think the lieutenant who approves everything you know, in terms
which
of
is-
basically said, you know what, you don't have to pay the fee because there's no police protection.
And that's
so that
possible, too, yeah.
And so I don't think they came to us because I think the police looked at it, said, you don't need police protection, you don't have to pay the fee, not a problem. And so they probably just went and did it, never came to us.
And I don't think it was and I don't think it does,
No,
and I agree with you. It's not malicious towards the police at all. It's just simply he said, hey, you don't need us.
We
Right,
have
move on.
an
Right.
event application
Yeah.
form. You have to fill out the form. The police have to make the decision about whether or not they need police. And the fee for an outside for-profit event is $500.
yeah.
That's the policy that they got when they got their application.
I'm
Yeah,
just,
no,
I'm
I
just saying
agree.
about that, the fact that they didn't come
So-
against us in front of us last year. So
I am more
I don't
than-
have a history. That's what all I'm
But-
saying is,
If you want to have an event in the town of New Paltz, the police department has to review it and decide whether or not they're going to have police or any other kind of traffic control. You don't just get to invite 500 bike racers and say, don't worry, there won't be any traffic problems and we'll take care of all the safety. We can't abdicate that responsibility. If the police chief says it's fine, then it's fine.
Which is part of the approval process.
But,
Right.
you know, this is
Yeah.
a for-profit event, and that's what the policy is for.
And they are based out, they're based out of Gardner.
mhm.
Because the insurance is all out of Gardner, not out of a New Paltz
Yeah.
location.
Well, last year they rented a space in Newport, but
They have a New Paltz address for.
That's why we ask for the corporate headquarters, and that's who gets the insurance. so.
Right, and the corporate headquarters are based out of Gardner, New York. But that's on the, so the good news is they have insurance also. So, like I said, I seconded it. I am happy to approve it, and I will talk to Gunther tomorrow.
well, because of its late date and stuff, I would have been willing to waive it, but since we need 3 votes to pass it, I'm going to just vote along with it, just so at least this way they've got the approval and
They can figure it out.
they'll have to figure it out because there's no other choice.
You let me know if it's approved, this way.
Yes, I'll take
It is,
Well, it's approved, it's just a matter.
it's
Oh, wait,
approved to send to
Did we say
the
aye?
chief.
Don't say aye yet?
Not
As soon
yet.
as we get the $500 check, it's approved.
Aye.
Aye.
There we go.
Motion is so carried. Can I have a motion to close? meeting?
But you had July 4th Fairgrounds contract.
Oh, you know what? I
Do we
was
have
gonna,
to-
I was going to take it off. Let me just tell you real quick.
No, we remember this from in the past. They have a deadline where they want you to reserve
Well, this
it.
is the question that I want to ask. I mean, I put it on, but then I had concerns. So real quickly, last week Kitty pointed out about the fact that that it really is a town event and we should accept it, and we signed the contract, for the fairgrounds and whatever. So I forgot to ask for the approval of the fairgrounds, that we had gotten the contract at the last minute. So I said, let's put it on tonight because we have to do it. Then Carol commented to me that because she's been the treasurer for a long time, that she had been told many times that the town board doesn't sign it, that it's the committee that signs it, because technically it's a committee that really handles the July 4th, and that the town board doesn't sign the contract. And then I said to Carol, I said, wait a second, I said, that doesn't make sense to me, because I suspect that they have to have insurance, that the county needs insurance in the contract. I suspect it's the town's insurance that they go under, so therefore the town has to sign it. It
Right.
can't not be the committee.
Right.
And so Carol said that she had been told by the people who ran the committee in the past that technically it's not a town function. And so I said, you know what, I don't want to sign it tonight because I want to find out
Okay.
legally what we should do.
The
So
what-
if you think we should or
Well,
shouldn't,
in-
All right, so the
So,
misinformation
right.
that Carol has been under is that fundraising for the fireworks is not a town event. But the family day, the community day, having the youth center there,
The bands, we vote on the bands, and which
Well,
Kitty's
not
had to,
anymore.
well, but Kitty used to have to
Right.
excuse herself from voting
Right.
on the bands because we pay the bands.
Right.
And the county, lack of a better word, insist that the town sign the contract. 'cause it's
Tony
our
signed
insurance.
that
Tony
contract.
signed the
Okay.
contract, so we do have that sign. But when it came to payment for the fireworks, that was done by the committee,
the
because they raised the
fundraising.
money for that.
Right.
the bands we paid, which was a couple thousand, it used to be
Yeah.
4,000.
Well, we have 20
Also, the rental, the 20, but that was part of it, the county charges us.
They charge us 700.
Right, and that comes out of that 2,500. So that's why we do sign it. So Carol was
Okay.
giving part of the information, so part of it does come from the committee,
Mhm.
and part of it we
Right,
have to do.
right.
Now, I know the county, when you know better than us, the county gets really nervous about, they have like strict deadlines of when they want to reserve.
Well, then that's, I mean, then there's no problem, we can approve it tonight.
Yeah.
What happened was, you know, we said, oh my God, we gotta put it on the agenda, we have to approve it. Then Carol was like, oh, wait a second, I was told that you guys don't sign it and stuff. And then I said, well, Carol, I don't understand how we can't sign it, because I'm sure it's under our insurance. So that's when I
What
said.
did you do last year?
Honestly, I can't remember.
I'm
we'd have to go back and-
going to bet you signed it.
Then I might have.
Yeah.
Because the county wouldn't let us use it
So it's
without
very,
you
very
signing.
feasible. So anyway, so then, yes, so then it's back on the
So
agenda.
now, we're not paying for any of the bands though now.
Well, we have $2,500 in the budget, and that we allocated for July 4th.
So, because we
So
do.
we can do the 700 for the fairgrounds, and then we have the remaining 13, whatever the difference is, 1,300 that we could say that
There
we
are
use for the
no
bands, or
other
we could use it.
expenses?
Well, there's going to be expenses for the fireworks, and there's going to be expenses for,
But I mean, sometimes, I don't know what it costs to put on that event.
well, why don't we just figure it this way? For the moment, it's usually about 15
We also have
grand.
to ask Chris
It's
if
about
his
15 grand.
entire department is willing to.
Well, they usually don't. Mike never did it. What they did is use volunteers for all the cleanup.
No, they
building
use the building grounds.
out there.
I thought they dumped everything. They dumped everything out
They
there.
always help set up too.
Oh, they
set up.
set
Set up the recycling bins and stuff like that.
I thought it was all just dumped and then volunteers.
No, they go out early, they set up, they break
Yeah, I mean,
down.
it's not like it's a big deal. It was,
Well,
It's July
I didn't
6th.
think so.
Oh, that's very nice of you.
but
Well, it's never a big deal.
you
for
can do
them.
that the day before though. So it's not
We were
overtime.
doing it that morning. I went out there and helped, I brought a truck out.
Okay.
I don't even remember, at least last year, I don't really even remember that anybody putting in for overtime. I think they actually almost
No.
do it all the time.
It's
It's like
always
It was done.
it's sort of volunteer.
We should
Yeah.
at least ask if they are willing to volunteer
Yeah,
again.
I'll make a motion that we approve the July 4th fairground contract to be held on July
Sixth.
6th to be signed by supervisor in an amount not to exceed,
700.
is that what?
Say 750.
Not to
just in
exceed
case.
$1,000.
Okay.
Right.
Because I don't know if the fees are
I think it's
changing.
$700. I'm pretty sure it's 700, but just to be safe.
Second,
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried.
So we got that one done too.
all
Okay.
right. Motion to adjourn?
Can I
Wait,
make a quick
Wait,
Sure.
statement
Chris,
real
one
quick?
question. Oh,
Sure.
sure.
That we finally finished, or nearest completing the 299 bridge, and I'm happy to announce it's $34,000 under budget.
So in
Yes.
case the cameras didn't hear it because you don't have a microphone, did you just tell us that the 299 bridge you've been working on came in $34,000 less than you expected?
And for 5 years, it's been under construction. We finished it in 2 days with the help of Town of Lloyd, Rich Klotz, his crew and my crew, and we came in I don't have the final bill, but about $34,000 under budget.
Thank
So
you,
it's
Chris.
been in the works for 5 years, and you finished it in 2 days with the help of the town of Lloyd. At $34,000 less.
That's
because-
basically the gist of it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank
It
you,
would help
Chris.
Dave Clauser's office, too.
Thank you, Dave Klaus, and thank you, Chris. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Yeah.
moved?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried.
Thank you.
And we finished before Rosanna had to leave at 10:30.
all right.
All right.
You've got 4 minutes.
Chris, do you know where we